Welcome to FMA Talk, everyone. I am Datu Tim, and this is my wonderful co-host.
Hey, PG Ties here, everyone.
So, I want to start off real basic here. So, I didn't want to do a show today because of the day, and it's September 11th. So, I remember the day vividly, and for those who are not old enough to remember it on the show, it's one of those things you just can't describe until you've lived through something of that nature. So, when I remember when I was young and the previous generation talked about you don't know what it was like. I get it now. I do get that. There's a lot of things. September 11th, I remember with was it Challenger that blew up? A bunch of things of that nature. A lot of atrocities that happened with mass shootings and stuff of that nature. It's if you haven't been there, you just can't describe it. And I just want to just take a moment today to not get political, but just remember the things, people that we've lost over the years, and whether it be from the incident or complications of the incident. A lot of first responders had got toxins in their body, and some people couldn't cope with it afterwards. So like I said, I would have rather not do it tonight, but unfortunately, there's not many nights we can do these things, so I have to pull the trigger when we can. Just if you're watching with us live, just take a moment and think about that, and just But Ty, how are you doing?
Good. Weekend was okay. Nothing much going on though. It just got hot here again.
Okay.
I actually went to a Renaissance festival recently.
You went to what?
Have a Renaissance festival.
Oh, nice.
That was cool. I hadn't been to one of those in years, but
I'm going to a Renaissance festival, but it's a different one.
There you go. Yes, it's true. Yeah. No, I was looking for the martial arts section. Sometimes they used to have that in at least the one in Texas, but not here.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to the Renaissance Martial Arts Festival, which is a martial art festival hosted by Renaissance Martial Arts, which has nothing to do with the Renaissance Fair. Right. And then Bill Anderson, remember the first responders who ran into the scene? Yep. I think it was absolutely, my father was one of the first responders. Facebook user, for some reason, you're not coming through, so I would mention your name, but I don't know who that is. I was like, once again, Facebook doesn't always play well with others. And neither do I, so there we go. So I've been working feverishly around the house. Let me see if I get the number here. Because going through this here, we're 18 days away from the main camp. From the main portion of the instructors camp. There is the pre-conference, which is 17 days, but 18 days until the instructors camp. Uh-huh. So, which initially was supposed to be the middle of the month, but we moved it because we are going to we as in me, going to the gathering hosted by Bruce Jutnick. I leave Thursday for that.
Nice.
And I'll be doing some stuff while I'm out in the area. So, but that'll...
You'll have to tell them hi from me. It's been a while.
Yeah. So, looking forward to it. Just a lot of stuff going on. Just trying to stay on top of things and get caught up. It's, life is complicated and it's not getting any easier. I went and talked to my orthopedics. They're putting me into physical therapy for my shoulder. So hopefully we won't need a surgical option for that. But I'm going into a different orthopedist in a week and a half for my knee. And we've done the MRIs, and they're thinking with I mean, we haven't reviewed the MRI, but because I had 100 cc's of fluid taken out of my knee, then another 80 cc, like, yeah, something's going on in there.
Right.
So, I got a little ticked off a little because I didn't understand, because never having a problem like this. Um, I I was told that they might be taking a piece out and not replacing a piece in my on my knee, which I'm not happy about.
Hmm.
I thought, they go, yeah, sometimes if you're lucky, they can sew it, but sometimes what they're doing is shaving pieces off your meniscus.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I don't like the sound of that. So I have to find out what their plan is. Cause if they take something away, I don't know, what's the stability of that leg going to be like?
Right.
Hmm. Not, not too pleased about that. No, I mean, I'm happy. I mean, my mobility's increased a lot since they've drained the fluid. It is a huge step in the right direction, but I've been having some issues with my leg giving out here and there and stuff. It doesn't feel right, but it's getting there. I've just been named fight choreographer to Ambus 2. I was the fight choreographer for the first one, and they have me coming back, so I'm looking forward to that.
Cool.
Cool. They'll be filming in June, so I need to do some things. It was a sci-fi flick, so I've signed an NDA, so there's only so much I can talk about. But the cool thing is that it's a sequel, so if you see Ambus, you'll get a vibe. And like I said, I'm doing the fight choreography, and the last couple times I've done this, when I first did it for that group, I ended up doing it on the fly, on the set, last minute, because someone crapped out on them. They got to the point where I get people to come over to my school and we can rehearse. Which I'm like, okay, that's so much better.
Yes, exactly. Good. Okay. No, that's pretty cool. And the callback is always a good sign.
Yeah. I haven't done one in years. I mean, it was pre-COVID. So, I mean, it's an independent, which the writer strike doesn't affect me,
Yep.
And I feel bad for Ryan because, I mean, he's a full SAG and his hands are tied, And one of the things that when we talk about TV shows and movies they're all done. The problem is you need to have a writer on set in case they have to change anything. You can't just do it on your own. You need to have a union writer there to do all this stuff. So obviously you can't film without having, if there's a writer strike, that means the writer would be crossing the line, and that would be it for their career. So, yeah. But I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, right now we're getting ready for the camp. That's the big thing.
Yep.
Oh, excuse me. Looking forward to it. We're gonna have a blast.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it.
And I've already got a bunch of the packets done.
Good.
So we've got Panantukin 2.0 all set up. We got these new folders set up for you guys. Are gonna like that, you've seen a few of the things. I've shot some photos. Okay. Let me see here. Have you tried the ATG program for rehabilitation of the knee? I haven't done anything yet. Right now, I've got my first appointment set up for Monday? No, Tuesday, for my first rehab session for my shoulder. And then, the whole thing was, hey, have you done any rehab? I go, I haven't done a thing because I want to get to the doctor and have them prescribe, I talked to my guy for my knee. Can I get back to the gym? Yeah, sure. I still haven't because I still would prefer to talk to someone who's my therapist, to give me the proper direction. Don't do this kind of movement, do that kind of movement. I mean, because,
Right.
getting back in the gym is a vague comment.
So did they? I mean, you said that you haven't done the MRI yet, or you have done it?
I've done all the MRIs, but I haven't.
Okay.
It took me 2 months to get them to look at my shoulder, or no, to get me into the office. So that just happened last week. So he's got me exercising. So I couldn't do this.
Right.
So they put cortisone and anesthetic in there. It's clicking, but for the last month, I wasn't able to throw a punch. Now I'm still in pain, but it is what it is.
I've been doing for the last 2 weeks, my rehab on my shoulders. It's felt better than it has in years. It's not totally fixed, but it's a whole lot better.
I seen Lex has put up next year's event.
Oh, right. It was good.
Wow. I better hope. That's going to be a rough one. Because the weekend prior is probably going to be the FMA Expo featuring Riddell de Guck in Maryland. The weekend prior.
Right. Well, I mean, this year, at least for me, I got the 3 weeks in a row from the end of this month are crazy.
Yeah. So,
Happens.
Yeah, I was talking to Tara about that, and yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, week back to back. That's lovely.
No fun.
Oh, wait a minute, and they're both in Maryland. Go figure.
Yep. Would be.
Yeah. Here's what I'm gonna say. Not my problem. I'll be going to it. I'll be wondering. Well, actually, I got to see because, once again, I just had to have a talk in my class tonight about. There's a tournament Columbus Day weekend that I was thinking about. All right, I'll go to it. Maybe I'll go to it. Hammond and Hahn. It's a local one. So we commit to it, and then all of a sudden they say there's no stick fighting at it. Okay, so I make the announcement to my guys. There's no stick fighting, but there's still people who want to go. Okay. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, I'm not even going to be in town. And then my comment to them is, and it's the truth. I go, hey, it's not like I'm there for you guys, because what happens is of late we go to a tournament. And Ryan and myself get stuck in rings judging all day. So neither one of us gets to coach. Right, and then sometimes his brother judges as well. And everyone loves the quality of judging that the three of us are doing. So the topic we're going to have then is, okay, it's time for you guys to pony up some judges. It can't just be the three of us, because there's none of us there for our students. Okay, boom. So lay off the beer next time. All right. So what do you say about Grandmaster Tim Hartman is true? He did meet Bruce Knees. Oh, listen. We already got Roden. We don't need another one.
That's right.
PG Ty getting a little feedback. Getting a little of feedback.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what they did. We're trying to figure that out.
Yeah, we were having problems. We got problems. We've got issues.
It's weird because nothing changed.
Yeah, it sounds fine for me, but yeah. So, well, I guess we should get into the topic. Oh, now I'm hearing you in the background, or hearing me in the background, in your background.
Maybe we both need to have echo cancellation on.
I don't know.
Because I can hear you.
Okay, let me do that. Let me go here. Audio. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, and I can't hear me. So
okay, then we're all good.
All
right. Okay, so we should probably get into it.
Sure. Yep.
Let me. I'm gonna consolidate a window here. What? Ha ha ha. Okay. All right. So hopefully we'll be able to do this all well. Been just a little off with getting ready for the camp. So making the house purty for you guys.
There you go. Trying to get some windows here for myself. Okay. All right. So no rants. Well, I like how you broke in with the remembrance of the day. We'll just make that the rant, I guess.
You know, I'd rather not have a rant.
There you go.
Today, you know, because of the day.
Yep. Sounds good. Too much stress and strife everywhere anyway.
And you know, it is what it is. So, but we just get into the topic.
Yep.
And that's all on you. I'm just here long.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to do something. So it's not something weird. Okay, well, whatever. Yeah, okay. So I saw the announcement. Hopefully everybody checked it out about, hey, what the subject is. You had some good questions in there, but I think maybe, and I asked you ahead of time, maybe we want to go back and set the stage a little bit. So people remember, you know, when you started Modern Arnis, what kinds of things you did coming up that would sort of set us up to maybe eventually getting into the WMAA. I was wondering if you sort of, you know, go off on that tip, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, so we'll start off with the basics. Just send this right here. Okay. All right. Needed to send. Okay. That's good. Okay. All right. So, now I started in 1985. So I was 19. No. Yeah, I was 19, turning 20, and I up to that point I was a partial artist, doing a lot of backyard training and stuff of that nature. Oh, hey Harry, gonna see you in a few days, brother. Did a bunch of backyard stuff. I've done wrestling and boxing and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a backup plan. I was going to go to a school. It was an Ishinru school. It was like the happening school. I wasn't sure if it was what I wanted. And unlike most people, I actually researched schools before I went. You know, so I was going around and I got a call from an acquaintance of mine, goes, "Hey, Tim, you got to come out and check this place out. It's cool." I didn't even know what the system was.
Mm-hmm.
Went in, put a stick in my hand. It was Arnis. It was the Filipino Karate Academy.
Nice.
Owned by John Bryant.
Yep.
At that time, he was a direct student of Remy's. Started off underneath Don Zangi. So, you know, I went over, I did my thing, and it really took. It really just the vibe I was looking for. And I think because it took, you know, I was a big Bruce Lee fan. I wanted to do Jeet Kune Do, and there was nothing in Buffalo. And I hopped on Arnis. It clicked. And by the time I had access to Jeet Kune Do, I wasn't interested. Nothing wrong with it, but I like the deep dive of FMA versus that cross section of stuff. Yep. What's going on here? What is happening? PG Ty looks fuzzy. That's just because that's his face. He hasn't shaved. And then, yep, I was hoping, good looking forward to seeing. Yep. So, about a year into the training, 85, actually, it was months into the training. I went to the Mississippi summer camp and I did so well. I actually passed my certification for being a basic instructor. That's usually reserved for people who are black belts in other systems. But one of the things for those who don't do modern Arnis, the norm for modern Arnis is to do the art within your art, which we've talked about on previous shows. And the art within your art mindset is that you're doing, and it's all modern Arnis. You're all part of the family, all part of the family. But when you're doing the art within your art, you're only doing part of the art. You're not addressing it as a full standalone system. So, and most of the people who trained at, Ty, you were there. I mean, how many, I'm not going to say people, how many schools or club leaders that you knew of that trained it more than one day a week?
More than one day a week? Less than a handful.
Okay.
I could count on one hand.
Okay.
But that was just in Texas, but still.
Right. Okay. So, and we would also have people that would only see Remy when he came to town. And like, okay, the norm would be to see Remy. He visited you in town if you hosted the seminar. Mm-hmm. You might travel to the seminar. Mm-hmm. And then you may or may not go to summer camp. So an instructor may see Remy 5 hours a year, or maybe 30 hours a year if they did the camp and a seminar. But that would be the total time, So because I was in the Filipino Karate Academy, a modern Arnis standardized school, I was training 5 days a week there, plus my own personal training. So I quickly, when Remy would come do seminars in the area, I'd show up as a Zuke and he would be teaching what people thought were advanced material was my yellow belt requirements at the time. So I became an instructor in 1986. 1988, I became a black belt because you usually in modern Arnis, since you were most likely an instructor in something else, the basic instructor program was basically an apprenticeship program. Like I said, once again, it was usually geared for people who were black belts in other systems. But like I said, I did, because of the concentration of training I got, I hopped right in and I was able to pass my instructor's test off right out of the box. My basic instructor, and eventually I think it became an apprentice instructor diploma. So 87, I left my instructor, who was John, who was leaving the art. And then what else? I ended up becoming a black belt in 88. Should have been 87. There's some political nonsense, but at the end of the day, I was a better black belt the year after. So that was good. So in 88, I got my black belt. 89, I produced my first black belt. And then 91 is when I went up again and I produced 5 black belts at that time. 5 more black belts. 5 more? I think it was 5 more. Or 4 more. And then, eventually, professor saw that I was producing black belts for him. And I was going up the ranks, and I was consistently having my students do the forms the way he liked it. I was like 92-ish. I started taking over the forms instruction, and he would also have me teach other aspects. But when it came time to forms, he would leave the room and leave it to me. So it became the forms instructor for the organization in general. If I was at a camp and forms were being taught, I was, if I was participating in that camp, I was teaching the class. And then eventually he made me the Can-Am director of the IMAF.
So there were, at this time, there were how many organizations in the U.S. For Modern Arnis? There was, well, you just said the Can-Am chapter of IMAF. So there's IMAF.
There's IMAF, which Remy didn't do anything with, but he wanted something done with it.
Right.
Then there was George Mazak had International Modernist Karate Jiu-Jitsu organization.
Yep.
Which was to support Remy.
Yep.
And then Remy wanted me to, his comment to me, and remember, Remy's English wasn't the best. Tim, I will give you Canada. I want you to take over Canada. I wasn't taking over. I wouldn't want Canada. They wouldn't want me. No, it's just that he wanted me to help develop it because, at the time, the exchange rate was 50 cents on the dollar. So like when a lot of times the people up there just couldn't afford Remy.
Right.
Or I should say, let me rephrase that. It was much more of a financial risk because getting him up there would have been an international flight if it was a flight. Yep. Then, literally 2 to 1. For every Canadian or for every US dollar, it's 2 Canadian. So, yep. When you sit there and say someone it's $2,000 American plus, now it's 4K. And the thing here is buying power of the Canadian dollar inside their own border was the same. So, like if you bought I always go to the basics, like a can of soda. If you bought a can of soda or soda, maybe it's $1 for a Coke in the States, and it was $1 for a Coke in Canada. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, when it came to changing the money over, it was half, and it bit me in the butt once before. So he wanted me to be, so like I said, at the time, there were 2 organizations. There's 2 people running chapters for Remy. So George had his thing, and I was the Can-Am director of the IMAF. How you doing, Kurt?
Hey, Kurt.
You know what I don't understand? I didn't know that chickens were rubber up in Alaska. Just saying.
They get freeze dried. They can have rubbers in them.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and Kurt, if you get some events up there, let us know because we're always looking to crash something. Not saying that the 2 of us are going to show up, but I'm just saying we always like to know or promote events too. Because we're all about promoting events. Yep. So, so and listen, you didn't need to belong to either or. Remy umbrellaed everybody. You see, here's the problem. It was more of a student teacher. Remy wanted an organization. We talked about this. Like the IMAF was more of a following.
It was Remy. Yeah, pretty much Remy Club.
But he wanted it.
Yep.
He just couldn't. And we talked about this. Why did it fall apart? And I just say it fell apart. I also didn't say it didn't get better. I'm just saying if things went sideways. Hey, Carl.
Hey, Carl.
Carl's going to come to camp, he said.
Awesome. That'd be great.
And the weekend prior to that, we're going to be in Renaissance.
Nice.
Provided he can get away 2 weekends in a row.
Nice.
But that's just a day trip. And we're wearing the Red Bull shirt, my man. He loves wearing the Red Bull.
There you go.
He loves wearing that.
But yeah, I remember he asked if I joined Mazik's thing, so we all did. Yep. And I think Mazik thing started before Can-Am chapter. Is that right?
Yeah, he started before.
Okay.
I don't think he had a web presence though.
No, he didn't. It was all and snail mail. I remember sending things in and snail mail was all the thing. IMAF.
So it's not I am AF.
IMAF.
International Modern Arnis Federation.
Yep. Which is funny because it was just where Remy was in the States, and anybody else, it was Remy. It was the Remy Club, essentially.
Oops. Yep. So let me I want to just say something about that real quick. Because we've had arguments about, not we've been tight, but other people don't. There's been comments about this, and people don't feel confident enough to come up on the show and talk about things.
Hmm.
They want to control the narrative. Remy did not have the organization. Well, actually, he may or may not have had the organizational skills. Unfortunately, and this is what I'm going to say, we as the black belts didn't do our job right. If we did the job right, we would then be working on the next generation of black belts.
Mhm.
We should have been teaching the students. Remy should have taught the black belts, and the black belts should have taught everyone else. Unfortunately, Remy had to teach everybody. And I'm going through that now, less and less, because I got a great team that does their job. And I hold them accountable. And if something's wrong, first thing I do is I look at myself and see, is this my fault? Why doesn't this person have this piece of material? Did I drop the ball? And if I did, then I deal with it on my end first and then go from there. But, you know, at the end of the day, I don't want to teach the students. I want to teach, you know, I want everyone to come to a seminar I'm teaching, but I don't want to have them rely on the seminar to learn to get their yellow belt, their orange belt, their blue belt. You know, that's not what we're about.
Right.
You know, so, and if we all took that approach,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was talking to somebody and they're talking about the material. Well, Remy didn't do this and Remy didn't do that. I go, yeah, when was the last time you saw Remy do trapping hands? Yeah, we don't do trapping hands anymore. I go, no. Include me in that we. I do trapping hands all the time.
Yep. Yep.
You know, we, as in my school, do it all. Now, I say that because we were a full-time school with a written curriculum to hold us accountable.
Well, that was always the mandate that when Remy said, "Hey, you will start a club at Texas A&M," it was the first one I started. I thought the mandate there was to teach the students so they could come to a seminar and do extra stuff or learn extra things, or you know, teach them the whole gamut of materials as much as I could, and then they get the spice and the fine details and whatever Remy wanted them to do on top of that. So that was the role that I assumed that he wanted when he said that. So that's how I took it that seriously. But you know,
I wish more people would have done the same, my friend.
Yeah, no, I get you. But it was funny. I mean, he told you to do something. Hey, join this organization. Boom, we did. Hey, you will start a club. We did. All of that good stuff. But yeah. So actually, so when did the Can-Am chapter of IMF come out about? Because I think that might have been after. Actually, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, that's a good question. Let me pull something up in my notes. Let me see here. Let's see.
Mark, I see your message. I don't know who you are, but I got you there, fellow Aggie.
Okay. All right. I see a Screamador magazine here. Okay. So I'm pulling up I still have the PDFs. So this one of them was done. Do I have a date on this? I'm thinking the Can-Am chapter was around 96.
That's what I was thinking.
95, 96.
Okay, that makes sense. That's what I was thinking as well. So either, so we must be right-ish. How's that?
Right-ish. Okay, here we go. What's Gig'em?
That's an Aggie thing. That's what I was talking to Mark on there.
Well, what's Aggie?
Texas A&M Aggies.
Okay, I'm left
Texas
out.
Aggies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Met you at Raymond seminar.
Good deal.
I had my son and my daughter with me. Cool. That's old school.
No, it would have been this last seminar.
Okay.
Yeah, probably. Except unfortunately, Mark, I will not be making this next one because I'm going to have my other leg chopped off. get a new hip,
Yeah.
put it back on. So I'll have
I
to catch
wish
you the
there
next
was
one
a
around.
dark option on this.
Oh yeah. But anyway, good to
Mm,
see you, Mark.
Okay. All right.
But yeah,
So
he wanted everybody to feel. What was his other things, right? Inclusive, right? The thing about having everybody part of his deal, part of the family, part of
Yep.
the art that he was passing on. I think
Yeah.
that was the organization in that sense, the
Yeah.
inclusion.
Well, and listen, okay, it was more of a family than an organization.
There you go. Yeah.
So we had this family vibe, and a couple of us, like George Mazek and myself, were tasked to take it to the next level. Actually, I don't know. Well, let me rephrase that. I have no clue what George Mazek's marching orders were. There and like actually, Carl Minkel's a guy you got to talk to. He's got stuff like he's got folders from other people who did chapters,
Hmm.
like high gloss folders that were printed back up in the 80s.
Hmm.
I'm like, where the hell did this come from? I've never seen this before.
Right.
You know, I'm like, dude, I tell him, anytime you feel the need to pass that on to somebody, I'm your Huckleberry.
Right.
You know, hey, I like to be a collector of these things. I'm actually like, I got Remy's stick bag. There wasn't one from the Philippines. It was made from him here in the late 70s. It's actually not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking to see who I'm going to give it to. Not that I want to get rid of it, but I want it to carry on to next generations.
Right.
So if people have any of these Remy Pracis heirlooms and you've got nothing to do with them, by all means, I am more than happy to be a caretaker for the time being until we find the next generation to do that.
There you go.
It'd be nice to. I don't know if I trust these martial art Hall of Fames enough to give them Remy heirlooms.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I just
don't know how
I'm
much.
a little apprehensive about.
Well, that, and I don't know how much exposure they get anyway. It might be better with the word of mouth, depending on the style.
So,
but I get you. Yeah. No, I still have some of the old newsletters from the Mazek organization.
Okay, cool. And Mr. Mazek's no longer with us, unfortunately.
Right.
But yeah, so you know, we had a bunch of people. We had a website. You can still if you WMAA.com, that's the World Modern Arnis Alliance. But if you go to archive.org, you can search to see people who are directors in that, like I think Chuck Goss and Brian Zolinsky and others. We're part of that.
Part of that larger family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, like you said, it's all modern Arnis. So, okay, the reason I wanted to sort of, start with that is just sort of get some background. Where did the, eventually, if we fast forward again to WMA, these are some of the kinds of experiences and underpinnings that I thought might be informative for folks. Did you get to cover everything you wanted to along those lines, or was there anything else before we just dive in?
I mean, there's really, it's all good. I mean,
that was just my idea. Was just you give some background, because it doesn't come out of a vacuum, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we do not have a written culture for our group. So it's kind of hard to find out who's whom in the zoo.
Right.
I mean, we talked about it before. Chris Chu was telling us, he was surprised that he met some guy that said he was the West Coast or East Coast rep, but never heard of his father. I'm like, well, how could that be? I'm like, simple. There wasn't social media back then.
Right.
Smartphones didn't happen until after Remy died.
Right. Right.
So,
right. Yep.
The only way any of us were known, like, I was known out there for two reasons. One, my name was in the magazine as one of the hosts.
Yep.
Which would have been probably about 50, 60 people would have had the same distinction out there.
Yeah.
And then the fact that I traveled a lot to see Remy. If I hadn't traveled to see Remy, people wouldn't know who the hell I am.
That's right. So reaching back as we did, asking this question, thinking back along these lines, can you point to any of this stuff that had a direct had some seeds or some lessons learned or influences for what brought about the WMA, for what made up
Okay.
the WMA, what made up the approach for curriculum, everything.
Okay, well, so curriculum is easy. That was
Right.
John Bryant, the school I came from, the Filipino Karate Academy. We had a written curriculum. Turned out later, I found that Remy was a silent partner in his school. So I don't know how much involvement Remy had in the curriculum. But the funny thing was, Dr. Jeff Leader, which I don't know if you've met him, he's my first black belt.
Yep.
We went to camp together, and they handed us the camp test. First camp test in Michigan, or first camp in Michigan. His first camp ever, 1987. Hand him the thing, and he looked through the whole thing. I'm like,
we do all that.
There's not a damn thing on this list that we haven't covered.
Right. So you did your job well. Yeah. No, I had pizza with him and his son after one of the camps early on when we started doing things together. Yeah.
Nice. So he was like, you couldn't have prepared me any better, short of being a better martial artist at the time, So, but it was like 98, 99. I had this little epiphany. And that's when I wrote down the World Modern Arnis Alliance on paper. And people say, well, wait a minute. Remy didn't die until 2001. Right. Why would you do that in 98 or 99? So we actually mentioned this earlier in today's conversation. I would say outside, or I'll talk about in North America. So these comments are based on living in North America. I would go into Canada. The Canadian Modern Arnis was primarily in Ontario. Actually, it was London, Ontario. So I would go. That was Modern Arnis in Canada. There were some students of Remy's, or people who became students up in Victoria, but it wasn't a developed school. It was more of a China. It was definitely the art within your art. So there's like, I think one school up in Victoria, and the rest was Michael Donovan in Ontario. And then I saw most of the people in the States. And keeping it in North America, I would say, and when I talk about people, I'm going to talk about group leaders and school owners, because obviously the population is different. I would say 95 to 98% of the people I met, actually, I'd say probably 98% of the people I met did the art within your art. Actually, the only person I know of outside the Buffalo area that did the art as a standalone program was Rocky Paswick. Now, I'm not saying he was the only person, he was the only person. He's the only person I knew of. And one of the people who I found out after Remy died was this guy right here. And that was Rich Parsons. How you doing?
Hey, Master Rich. Yeah.
There was the Flint group that had a full-time program.
Yep.
And then Eric, your teacher, trained Modern Arnis as he was a karate guy.
Right.
But he trained Arnis and gave it the respect it deserved.
Yeah, it was its own package. Yep.
Didn't rely on another system to teach the elements. Right. And then you learned from him, which obviously you learned the same way.
Yeah, and we definitely did that way. I had lots of people that never studied anything else, which is great.
And there's a bunch of people that had a high concentration of both. Sure. You look at Rick Ward in Boone, North Carolina.
Yeah.
You look at David Nung and Roland Rivera, who came from that. Yep. You look at Michael Bates in the Metro Philadelphia area. He had I used to teach at his school a bunch of times, a bunch of seminars down there. He had pretty much a 50-50 program. Michael Donovan out of London, Ontario, had up to 7 schools at one time, if I'm not mistaken. And they were 50-50. They're very good. he did a great job producing black belts up there. You know, and then and a lot of these guys I would work with. So, you know, but I mean, that's it. I mean, when you looked at all the people I met, okay, you have let's go here. Let's say we have 3 in North Carolina because we got Rick Ward and well, actually no, 2 because it was David and Roland and David were in the same club. So you had those 2, and actually I think there was a chain of them that did together. But from what I think David or Roland, one of the 2 of them told me that they were kind of put in charge of the Modern East thing because Rick inherited a kung fu system.
Right. So I remember something like that too. Yeah, I think Roland told me that.
But still, so there's 2 schools in North Carolina that I knew of that had a high concentration. You have Michael Bates in Philadelphia. You got Michael Donovan, which is an entity, but had up to 6 or 7 schools. So we'll take that to 10. You had Rocky. You had myself, and you had Eric. Oh, and Bobby Sullen. Bobby Sullen was very serious about his Modern East training. So that's it. Everyone else was doing the art within your art.
Doing
and Rich Parsons.
Well, that guy,
yeah, that guy.
And that whole group, the Flint group, yeah.
Flint group. So and the rest of them were all the art within your art, and I didn't know all these guys back then.
Right.
When I first wrote this down, all I saw was Rocky used to do and he quit, or he separated from Remy. Well, he quit martial arts. I mean, he talks about that. Now he's gotten back in, and we're so much happier that he did.
Yep.
You know, but you know, in '99, I didn't know anybody other than myself that was running a school. And I said to myself, well, if everyone else is doing the art within the art, because even Eric and yourself had something else to fall back on if things went sideways. My martial arts, there was no backup plan for me. I was a full-time Modern Arnis school. So I'm like, well, I need to have something in case Remy dies. I mean, and unfortunately, it just because we saw Wally J get ill and he had to retire because I think Leon had to take over at that time. He had vertigo and all this other stuff. And I'm like, well, what happens if and we had lost some stellar martial artists at that time.
Oh,
you know, and I'm like, well, what happens if this happens to Remy? You know, everyone else has something to fall back on, and there's no hierarchy built into what was going on. There was no headquarters. You know, I'm like, and listen, you know, when we talked about this elder versus senior. Elder being the elder statesman, senior being the most knowledgeable, or one of the, you know, your senior students are the ones that know the curriculum. Your elder students are the mentors that can tell you about life experiences and stuff of that nature. But I was turning into, if not already, being the senior student. I mean, Remy announced in '99 at Carl Minkels that I was the highest ranked American. And I went over and I asked him about somebody else, and he just smiled and chuckled and walked away.
Right.
I'm like,
well, let me ask you the elephant in the question room, because you did say, you know, this occurred to you, you know, before Remy died, and in the wake of, you know, several people had split away and made their own organizations from Remy. The question that might pop up to people's minds is, were you looking to, you know, have the WMAA be a split away from Remy?
No, not at all. This was a backup plan in case things went sideways, and they did. You know, but I looked at what was going on, and I didn't see anybody who was doing anything from my perspective to further Remy's art besides Remy and myself. Once again, well, okay. I saw George was doing stuff, George Mazak. but I just didn't think he had the personality that,
Even
he and
by the
I.
in the late 90s, it was his, at least from my perspective, what he used to do with his organization was fizzling, or something was happening. It was
He was
already going
also a
down.
big DKI guy too.
That's true too.
So,
Yeah.
so I mean, listen, karate, Arnis
A lot of
jiu-jitsu.
fires. Yeah.
So Wally, Remy, George.
Yep.
So he was like the DKI guy in the Chicago area, or one of the guys.
Mhm.
So he and man, he was a tough SOB.
Really?
I mean, he was, oh my God, Remy and Matt had us do singles and Wally together. Use your forearms. And I'm looking at him like, I don't want to beat up this old guy. And really what I should have said, I don't want this old guy to beat me up. Tough as nails. Old
Nice.
Polish guy who was brought up old school. Man, I can really appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask that question because, it might occur to some people. Like I said, particularly we did see people split away and say and do all sorts of weird things. So, if this seed was planted before he passed, that would be a question that people might ask. And
Well,
I knew the answer.
Let's go back to the basics.
Mhm.
I was the Can-Am director of the IMAF.
At it,
What would
Remy's,
I do with the Can? And by Remy's,
Yep.
Remy put me in that position.
Right.
So as the Can-Am director of the IMAF, I looked and said to myself, what happens when Remy's no longer around to do this? What do we do with the Can-Am chapter of the IMAF? And George Harris, and actually George Harris was around back then too.
Right. Hey, George.
So I looked around. I was put in, every time I was around, I was put in charge. And George says, yes, he was. Yes, he was. And he was there. So you can call bullshit on me. More and more, Remy put me in charge of things, and like I said, at the time, even up to the time of Remy's passing, everyone was learning the art within your art, which we talked about. They learned part of the art, and I just, I said, all right, what are these other with Chuck had judo and Tang Sudo. I think he was done with judo because he got cracked on there. I could be wrong. Kenny had Ishinru karate. Brian had his Kempo karate. Jim Lattis was underneath George Mazak, so he had his Raikou Kempo, so there's an association he could pop in with that. Jeff Delaney was a Kung Fu and BJJ guy, if I'm not mistaken. Gabrielle, I don't know what Gabrielle was doing. I can't comment. That's Europe. I just don't know.
Right.
But I mean, I looked around, and like they were all doing something else. So they all had something to fall back upon. I didn't.
Well, and I actually just occurred to me while we were talking, the other thing that could be influencing that is the whole idea that, the IMAF we talked about was being a loose organization, a family. It didn't really have all of the piece parts that you might want to have a rudder in the ground, if you will, as I mix my metaphors. But maybe WMAA, were you looking for that to be something that you could shape for that, as well as make sure that one of the things I think about is curriculum is a great example. When people say that there's not much of a curriculum, or they weren't looking at for a curriculum or whatever, or the poo-poo curriculum, I always smile at that, because if you're trying to get an art out there for a gazillion people, you have to have a curriculum. Yeah, it's not going to be cookie cutter, but you need to have a touchstone, a way to get people there. And then, of course, you tailor always to what the individuals need as you can. But this keeps everybody on the right track and all that kind of good thing. So I think curriculum is a great thing. It doesn't solve everything, but if you're serious about getting an art out there and having it go forward, I think that it's key. It's just me.
If the job, okay, why are we doing what we're doing? That's the question we all have to ask ourselves. That's not the answer for everyone. Everyone's answer is unique to them.
Sure.
If it is working on getting the next generation to do something, then we need to give them the tools. I'm going to use Manung Ted, my Balintawak instructor, which Remy was the one that hooked me up with it because he wanted me to do Balintawak so I can bring back the old pieces back into the art. Okay. Because Remy was a Balintawak fighter. People forget that. I was training with Manung Ted. My second year in, I'm doing a particular move, the arm torque, as I named it because Ted had no name. It was like that standing center lock off the okay. So I'm doing the move, and he goes to me. So I always had two things. He goes, there's the backup and the preferred. You do the backup because you know it works, and the preferred is preferred because, well, it's also preferred timing. It's preferred skill set. It's your better. The backup is what you do when you don't have the skills to do the preferred. So he goes to me, Tim, why are you doing the backup? Because you haven't taught me the preferred. And he thought because he didn't work from a syllabus, and I'm going to say this in a nice and not in a disrespectful way, because he taught the way Manung Anchan taught, that there was no checklist of any sort. People didn't get the same lessons, and people probably had holes in their. I remember we talked about that. There's the D clause, and I made the comment about there's the 5D clause, and one person's insisting that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm like, and Mom and Ted used to always say, "Well, don't give it back." And obviously this person did. So I'm going to talk about the first one is the cuticle, which I've nicknamed the manicure. There's one. Then there's the outside. There's the finger. There's the inside. I'm sorry. There's 4D claws. Right. 1, 2, 3. Oh no, there are 5. Yeah. So 4 of them are on the stick hand. The 5th one is the live hand D claw.
Yep.
Okay. Either this person forgot about the live hand D claw when he was counting, or he never learned it. But I can't believe Manung Ted wouldn't have taught him that. But then again, he never taught me the preferred movement up until that point when we were just playing. So if we want to teach this for future generations, we need to have some sort of syllabus. I mean, think about the education system. They don't do willy-nilly and just do whatever they want. They have textbooks.
Yep. Well, and I would say for all of us that were teaching, as I'm not even talking about just me, but I know that when you had to teach it in your own class as its own standalone art, you had to put together some sort of way to approach that. It could have been for your notes. It could have been in your head. All of those are types of curricula. I know what I did is I took what I got from Eric, put it together with what I'd already been doing to modify curricula for how I approach things to develop students from other style, but I didn't combine the material. I combined the approach of how do you dissect the material, put it back together in a way that grows the capability that you want to for a good baseline. So came up with my own curriculum for our Modern East program, Modern East Club, and then of course the one off campus I had as well. Did that because it mattered, and I really needed to think that through. I like to do it on paper. Some people do it in their heads. Some people just do it by experience, and it's always growing. I would say Remy is that latter one. But you had, if you took it seriously, wanted to do it, one of the earlier things you would do is, whether explicitly or implicitly, you would be coming up with an approach. That is your curriculum. So everybody does it, whether they think so or not.
Well, and listen, like, I've changed the way I've done things. I mean, like everyone else. Hey, Craig.
Hey, PG Craig. So PG George, PG Craig, Master Rich, all these people.
Yeah.
They'll let anybody in.
Oh, wait a minute. PG Craig, PG George.
Yep.
Master. Look, we got a lot of our guys on point. There we go.
We'll let anybody in. That's what I just said.
Yeah, I hate to say that, but yeah, you're right. We'll let anybody in. When I first started, like everyone else, I had more of a linear training program. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, the curriculum was linear, but that didn't mean I stuck to it.
Sure.
I did whatever I felt like doing, but I made sure.
If the map's there, you can choose where you want to go on it. It's nice. And you won't miss anything.
See, that's the whole thing. Exactly. You know what? How many ways can you go to the store? How many ways can you go to work? How many ways can you do X, Y, and Z? You know, there's usually the direct route, then there's a scenic route, then there's another route. You know, I want to make sure I've got 3 to 4 routes to every destination,
Mhm.
because what if something squirrely is going on? You know, right now, okay, you know, Buffalo has 2 seasons. Okay, construction and destruction.
Nice. Nice.
Well, our street is going. They're so down by. Okay, so you guys won't know this, but Ty knows this very well. By the viaduct, from that
Mhm.
point on to the corner,
Mhm.
they're putting in fire hydrants on that side of the street, or that end of the street. So that's been a lot of work. So right where you turn to do the how we go,
Mhm.
there's been a stop sign or a signal there to allow for one-way traffic.
Okay.
It's been a little pain in the butt, but I can go Seneca Creek the other way.
Right.
Or sometimes they were working on that side road itself, so you'd go up to the corner and come back. I mean, you know, what do you do when things don't go the way you want? You got to be able to think on your feet.
Yep. You got to know the terrain though in order to do that.
Right. So, you know, and that's the same with what we're doing.
Yep.
Do I have to teach the order of forms? Could I do? And I mean, in our system, we're not forms driven. So, could I teach the hand forms in a different order? Could I teach the stick forms in a different order?
Mhm.
The answer to that is yes.
Mhm.
Could I start people with sticks and end with open hands? Sure, I could. Um, I try to do a little blend. You know, I mean, if we talk about Filipino martial arts, um, traditionally we'd be a weapon art first, open hands last, because when you go to war, it's an armed confrontation. It's not, okay, I'm going to punch you. No, I'm going to stab you with something. So open hand combatives are a good backup plan in case weapons are broken, dropped, or whatever. But the primary focus is on this. I mean, look, you know, when we look at the U.S. military training, hand-to-hand combatives are more for what happens on leave, or more of a um, confidence building thing, like pugil stick. Pugil stick, like you're really going to use that? No,
Mhm.
but that's that warrior mindset. That's a drill to build skills,
Mhm.
and part of it is the mental stuff versus just the physical aspect of things.
And the balance and the
Yeah.
contact. Let's see. So I didn't realize how late it was. I want to make sure that we get through some of the questions. So we did some background, what drove right things. So you had a nice rundown here, and why it was initiated. But I'm wondering, there's probably more to do with, you know, what some of the purposes are, what the goals are, what people get out of it, that maybe you want to talk to before we get to, you know, some of the things that weren't so smooth, because that'll set that up.
Well, okay, so rephrase real shortly so I can make sure I'm on the.
Sure. So
I have something in my head. I want to make sure it's the
okay.
same thing.
Well, it doesn't matter. You can go where you want to. But I was just saying, you know, we talked to some background, some of the connections, some of the seeds that were planted, some of the
Mhm.
reasons why it was envisioned, and you know, some of the ways forward that were uh, built into the WMA, and I think that covers some of the, like you said, inspirations and aspirations and things like that. But what along those lines, I'm sure there's more that, you know, that you think that WMA is around for, if you
Okay.
will.
Well, okay, so let's go from a uh, salesman point of view.
Sure.
Why you might consider joining our organization. So I looked at things out there, and I looked at all the nice things that I thought we should have, and I did it myself.
Mhm.
You know, I looked at. I do martial arts as a hobby just as much as my profession. I would go and attend classes, and I still do 'em. Yeah, I'm looking forward to going to the Renaissance Festival. I'm bringing a bunch of my students with me.
Nice.
Be the first time. It's rough. I don't get a chance to bring, you know. So someone made a comment, I never see you with your students. Well, but my students come with me. I go, well, that's easy for you. Why? You only do 1 or 3 events a year, and I do 30. They don't have, and I get paid to go, and they don't. So it's kind of hard. So I'm looking forward to taking my students out to events.
Nice.
But because of these trips that I've done, I get to see what other people have, and I'm like, why don't we have the same things?
Right.
So I built us a website, or I got someone to build it. Now I manage the website myself. I wanted nice diplomas. Now Remy's weren't bad, don't get me wrong, but I have Ed Parker who did our diplomas, our masters, and it's a work of art. And I think some people have ridiculed my diplomas, but they've seen digital copies. They haven't seen it in person, or they just like the old school versions. Hey, Coach Danny.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
They have more of a nostalgic approach to their diplomas. But I wanted something that, to me, is just as impactful as their martial ability. When you see our diplomas on the wall, it's like a wow factor. I wanted to make sure that we had an instructor development program. I wanted to make sure we have a written curriculum. So, and here's the important thing. And if you're going to teach people and you want to keep your people, there's a lot of things you need to work on. It's not a black and white answer. It's not a one answer fits all, but here's one thing, and I've seen this happen time and time again. You need to give them the same opportunities that you have. Do you want to be an instructor? Do you want to have your own school? Okay, you did. So why wouldn't your students want the same thing? And don't be offended or intimidated because your students I want my students to own their own place. And here we go. Why not have something that looks professional? Yeah. Well, and here we go. George for a while had a school. I encouraged him. I helped him the best I could. He had one for like 3 to 5 years. And, I wasn't intimidated. I want him to have his own thing. The good thing is that we weren't in each other's territory, so there wasn't this overlap. So, I mean, the whole thing is if you don't provide for your people, they're going to leave.
Eventually, yeah.
And they might take people with them.
Right.
Wouldn't it be better to find them a location far enough away from yours that it doesn't interfere? And then you could have 2 schools doing the same art, and you could team up and work on things together. Wouldn't that be nice? Hey, folks, been watching YouTube via Roku. Not okay.
There you go.
Hey, did you see that Kempo thing I'm hosting, Joe? But so that's, I mean, for me, I wanted a registry for all of our black belts. I want, and George said, exactly. Look at it. Boom. Got a bunch of comments and questions. So, yeah, okay. And then
absolutely
to be better than them. Hey, I'm constantly talking about my students.
Absolutely.
I don't have a student at my tier yet. When I look at I talk about this quite a bit. My students are better than me. They just don't have the grit. Like I really have cool t-shirt tie.
That's our old Texas group. Yeah.
I have no problems hurting people physically. On purpose.
Well, look, I was talking about
Mr. McKinney, rising tide lifts all ships.
Yep.
Here's another perfect example. Mr. McKinney just opened up a second location. Far enough away, has Mr. Zach teaching at the other school, has other people, giving them the opportunity. Now they can see a path that if they want ownership, they could possibly have that down the road. But I know Mr. Kimura, who teaches out of my club, he's never had anybody who really wants to be, and that's fine too.
Right. Well, that could happen too, right? But you want to give them the opportunities. I think that was key. My idea of having the students better than you is pretty simple, right? I know I can help you miss your mistakes, like a good teacher should do. I can make sure you don't get the mistakes I had, so you're going to be better than me eventually. What is this? Abundance. So nice.
Okay.
No, that's true. You kind of have to do that, but it depends on what your goals are, right? If your goal is the art and the students, it's easy. Easy
Yeah.
peasy.
Okay. The blatant club plug is that it's next September. So and we'll be up in Massachusetts. You and I and Joe and others will be up there. Columbus Day weekend. We'll be up in Salem. Exactly, PG. There we go. So I go to other events. I went to a business event down in Orlando, and I'm looking, and there are 300 plus school owners there.
Mhm.
And then there's people talking about how much they've made in a day. Like, this is the plug for Maya. Okay, that's the organization I'm a member with. They talked about how their one school. Okay, there's a shitload of schools that did this,
Mhm.
but one school specifically did, like, in 4-hour event. Wait for it. Made $160,000 and affected their tuition by $500 a month. It only went down $500 a month. Oh, went down $500 a month. They made $160,000 in a 4-hour event.
Mhm.
Now, if they can do that and provide for all their people
Mhm.
and have 401k plans and all this other stuff, why can't we do the same in Filipino martial arts?
That's right. That's right.
You go to these big Taekwondo championships. They're amazing. Why can't we have the same? And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing for my people.
Right.
And
It
those who
happens-
saw my vision and are believe in it, they joined.
Well, it happens on a bunch of levels, right? That's the business side. There's the connection side. There's the curriculum side. There's also the international spread side. So WMAA is not just in North America now. Tell how many.
No.
You can go to the website and see where all the people are. But
Yeah, go to the website. Hey, and listen, I am pushing. Okay, Ty's doing a bunch of seminars. Not because of me, but I've encouraged him and I've helped advertise and I keep pushing him. We've got he
That's
and
important.
PG Chad are doing a WMA camp in the Maryland area, which I have nothing to do with, but it helps promote our organization. We got PG Craig doing one up in Northern Ontario. All right. It takes the workload off of one person, me. Okay. I want everyone to have their own things because then I hate the word. It's divide and conquer, but literally it is.
There you go. Yes,
It is.
like a virus.
And penicillin isn't going to fix this.
That's right.
But the thing is, here's go back to what we talked about before. I don't want it to be the Tim Hartman show where Tim Hartman has to teach to everybody.
Yep.
Okay, we all can do our own thing. There's plenty of room for all of us to have our own stuff. When we talk about this, and this is not me digging at Ty, because Ty does some of the best compared to the others. You go to the website, you will see some other people's names up there under the events. But usually there's more events. They just don't give me the information in a timely fashion. I have to put Ty's event up because I haven't done that. But if you go to the Facebook page,
It's on there.
his event is on our Facebook page.
Yep.
So, the problem here is that I have enough work to do this 40 hours a week for the org. I just don't have enough pay to put someone in that. So I'm wearing too many hats. So, and I'm leaving Thursday for California.
Right. But that's the thing with more than just one person doing everything, and the WMA having an organization. I think you've got I guess I would characterize it as one of the goals, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is to develop this sort of institutional inertia that is not just a person, right? If it's going to continue, it needs to have some inherent inertia in what it's doing, and I think.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the one right here. I mean, this is a perfect example. So I've been the ambassador, that lead person who's been going in places and opening up doors and doing stuff. Okay, where are you going to be that I started and I'm not going to be part of this year before you go up to Salem?
Oh, the teaching at the Northern Virginia Police Academy, at the NVCJA.
I started. Okay, I'm an adjunct instructor with Sheepdog Combatives.
Right.
So that was with John McClain. That's his call sign because he's off the grid.
Yep.
Through me, he met Chad Edwards, another call, PG Chad. Okay. And then PG Ty got involved with that as well. Now there's this whole cadre that does stuff down there.
Mhm.
And I just can't handle the workload of going to all these places. Actually, none of us can handle the workload to do all these places. And we all get a chance to get our moment or two and then not go crazy. And what's going on here? By the way, you mentioned various martial arts schools. I did not hear a bunch of modernist people in New England. Okay, so, but we weren't talking about who does it as a primary system and the people I knew at that time. So Lowry, I didn't know what. Okay, so let's do this. David Hoffman, I really don't know where he was at. Richard Roy, he did do Arnis and Tai Chi a lot, and actually that's how I went to Eric Alexander, because he didn't want to do it with Tai Chi. He wanted just to do Arnis. Lowry, I really don't know much about Lowry. Bob Quinn, he moved down to Atlanta, but once again, I don't know what concentration their modern Arnis was in their program. Bob Quinn was, if I'm not mistaken, was a student of Lowry. They both did Kempo, and there were Kempo schools. They weren't Arnis schools. There was Arnis in their school, but I was talking based on my experiences. I never met Lowry. So I don't know. I never had the chance to talk to him and get history from him. And I don't want it from his people. I want it from him. I'd rather get it right from the horse's mouth, But nothing wrong with those guys. Well, I mean, David Hoffman's no longer with us. To be honest, I don't know what David did martial art wise. I mean, I know he was with Remy and did a lot with us, and he was one of the vice presidents at one time. There's president.
Okay.
So, anyways, there we go.
So with this, with all this being the goals and some of the byproducts and some of the vision, right, for WMA, first off, I guess, what do you think well, actually, I think we covered a lot of it, and more of it can come up as we go on, but how was that path of getting to there, right? So you get a great idea, or you have an idea of what you want it to be. I'm sure it wasn't easy. I'm sure it was not fast. So you can sort of tell us if now that we sort of described what the purpose was and the vision was, how did it get there and how did that play out?
Okay, once real quick. I attended the Holyoke camp multiple times. I don't know if that's Greenfield or not. So, yeah. So, it wasn't easy. So I'm going to take part of this is on me. Part of this is on other people. So first of all, I got to sit there. I was at, hey, Terrell.
Hey, Terrell.
Hey, by the way, the weekend after your event, Lex is doing his event in August, just FYI. We can talk about it. Terrell's going to the Philippines shortly. So, I was a teenager when I started. So Remy died, I think I was 35. Yep. So people got to see a whole bunch of different Tim Hartmans. And sometimes you remember the initial Tim Hartman and not the evolution. And I've done a lot of growing over the years. And I've become a lot more articulate now. But I actually just recently wrote an article about this. Actually, recent as in earlier today, which I'll be pointing out. It has to do about arrogance versus confidence. Your teacher, Eric, thought I was a cocky SOB. And then he because I talked about a bunch of things I could do, talk about techniques and stuff. Yeah, you just do it this way, blah, 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 blah. And he, because he was part of the Modern Arnis Next Generation article. And Paul O'Grady interviewed him, and he goes, yeah, it was funny. What? Well, Eric talks to me and said, it's funny about Tim. Met him, thought he was a cocky SOB. I liked him, but it's always cocky. And then I realized he wasn't cocky. He was confident and he could do everything he said he could do. But part of that, I think part of the problem is not many people know how to deal with New Yorkers.
I was going to say, Eric is somewhat similar in one sense, right? He's the nicest guy you'll meet, but he was also very, very cocksure, if you will, in a good, but nice way, right? So he got away with it. Plus, he could always back it up. But it was funny because it's almost similar. So I think it takes one to know one, is why he
Probably why we get
recognized it
along.
here, right? Because some people don't get that, right?
There you go, George. We were all a lot different back then. And here's what I'll say: I've always been the same person. Fundamentally,
Mhm.
I'm the same person. I've evolved, but at the core, I've been this guy. I'm not this antichrist people think I am. But the thing here is, like, one of the things we bump into, people had no idea of scale.
Mhm.
And I don't think people understood how they we would talk about people, and I say, and people come to me and say, well, how do you get better at this? I go, well, I just train more.
Do the work.
Yeah, I go, and then I'm like, well, how often do you train? Well, I do Arnis classes once a week. Okay. Let's see. I heard that about Datu, but I found out you were confident and a straight shooter. Okay, thank you, sir. I'm going to star that comment just because I like to.
There you go.
Doesn't do anything on your end, but on my end, it flashes up. So listen, I grew up in New York. I worked. My father was a state police officer and a vet. My stepfather was a steel worker. I grew up working in the automotive industry. I've taught a lot of military and law enforcement and correctional officers, not on the job, off the job. And a lot of the communications I had were a no nonsense, straightforward communication style.
Mhm.
And a lot of times people are worried about their feelings more than they are about the message.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes when the message is there, we get butthurt on it. Okay. But I want the facts. And if I'm wrong, I'll take it. You were there. I don't want to talk about politics, but I'm going to talk about politics.
Mhm.
As a New Yorker, I was unaware of what was going on the border when it comes to the camps down there that Trump was sending all these people to. Well, first of all, Trump didn't send anybody anywhere. Trump didn't build those places.
Mhm.
Those were previous administrations, which I didn't know.
Mhm.
And I misspoke, and I was corrected in a very polite way when I was down in Texas.
Mhm.
And basically I said, well, at the end of the day, Trump's big thing was, if you're getting paid for a job, do it. Oh, okay. So, but the thing here is I was wrong. I was corrected in a very positive manner. And now I have the facts. And with the martial arts, that's what I want. Let me see here. I appreciate the level of professionalism. It's not F, it's WMAA. You're fired. You're fired. So, I come up, I talk about things, and like I said, people would sit there and say, well, Tim, how do you get good at doing this, that, or the other thing? Well, how often do you train? Well, I'm doing a class once a week. Now, they count hours weird because they look at all their training and they don't departmentalize it. They don't sit there and say, I'm a karate guy 5 days a week and I'm an Arnis guy 1 hour a week. And I sit there and said, well, listen, guys, I'm training 20 times more a week than you are. Oh, come on, get over it. Well, here are my class schedules. And and some people, they just walk away when I say I'm doing 10 or 20 times more work.
Right.
But I was doing 10 to 20 times more work.
Yep.
So I'm very confident. Like when I sit there and say that I don't know if anyone is more knowledgeable about Remy's art than Remy himself, than myself, or put the time and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I look at the hours logged in, and I'm not saying who's a better martial artist, because that's not what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Who's more knowledgeable at Remy's art? I mean, we talked about this. Let me see here.
It's just like anything. You live your craft more than X number of people. You're going to know your craft that well. I mean, it's part of doing your work. I can tell. I lived this too. So for a longest time in grad school, I would actually work out in addition to teaching 6 times a week. I would actually do my own training for another 2 or 3, 4 hours a day, literally, because I had the time. I was in grad school. So I probably had the wrong attitude. But in any case, it was more than a part-time job. That was the best I'd ever been at technical learning from the art. I could still kick that guy's butt, but it was the best I'd ever done because I had done that work. And it really matters, right? It sticks with you, and hopefully you keep it going. And so someone like you who's been doing that for decades, right, and is still doing it with the classes and whatnot, that you can't. I mean, what are you going to do about that scale?
Yeah.
You can't throw it out the window.
No. Well, okay, let's sit here. Really, Datu Tim? You were one of the most humble instructors I met at Seneca Falls. You're passionate. Well, you know, I don't know. And then autocorrect. Okay, we'll give you that one, Joe. I'll let you have that one. Knowledge and skill are two different things, and I guess I'll. Okay, here you go, Renee.
Renee, waiting for him to pop in.
Honestly, the most humble guy here is Ty. Oh, hi, Tim. So, you know, but I mean, the thing here is I'm not gonna apologize for who I am.
Right.
We talked about losing the tan tie. Okay. You know, we made some comments, and I know some of the Germans, the way they phrase things, we talked about this. You know, I can say something, but once I say the word "but," it kind of cancels everything out, and blah blah blah. As where I'm being descriptive, and in the States, it's one way, but it's like hyper emphasized in Germany. Well, I'm not speaking German, and I'm using it in an American conversation, not a German conversation.
Well, I mean, everybody's going to hear it with their own assumptions and biases, no matter what is said. So that's where I always tell people, look, if you got a problem with anything I said, certainly, Tim, I've thrown him out there too for this, just to ask. Yeah. It's much easier to have the conversation and figure it out than it is to go walk away butthurt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's think about this too. If we go through this and say, all right, like currently, okay, no, actually, while Remy was alive, I was doing 20 classes a week besides my personal training. And then I was going to go see Remy at least once a month. So seminars were 5 hours, camps were another 25 hours, you know. So we figured, I forgot how much we figured out. What was it, 1,000 hours of Remy a year?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, and also that's the other thing too. Classes back in the old days used to be, at least my classes
2 hours long.
2 hours long, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, I was doing 20. Okay. A normal Arnis class was 1 hour on a karate schedule. Okay. So, and I was teaching and training, and back then I didn't differentiate the two. I really did train even when I was teaching, you know. I was more of a training partner than anyone else. So, you know, but the thing here is when I'm teaching, I was practicing on how to be a better instructor. I was experimenting with different nomenclature, different angles of using this, that, and the other thing. So when I couldn't do it on the physical side, but the thing here is I was hands-on in all my classes.
That's funny you said that. I used to call my students, you guys are all my experiments. I'm just figuring stuff out. Thanks a lot.
My school, I talked it about that I'm the mad scientist and this is my laboratory.
There you go.
Then I met the defense lab guys and they called it defense. I'm like, dude, that's exactly my mindset. And when I met Andy Norman from there, I'm like, we're two completely different people, but we have a similar mindset when it comes to our on the whole thing about experimenting, tearing things apart, and doing all this stuff. You know, I wish I was more on the physical side, like the Europeans were, because it's part of their culture a little more. You know, but you know, I can only get beat up so much. I can only beat myself. We used to beat the crap. I mean, you know, because we were crossover. We were an old school. We were the crossover era, so we still got the benefit of the old school training with the new school mindsets.
Yep.
You know, but so there's things that were working against me at the time. One, I didn't know how to be more. I didn't realize that people were worried about their emotions as much. So I was very blatant and blunt with what I was saying. So, because I found that sometimes when you are too worried about hurting someone's feelings, that sometimes the message gets skewed. So I just called it the way I saw it. Now I found much better ways to get that same point across. But I'm saying the same thing. It's more palatable now. But I mean, think about this. If I told somebody I train 20 times more, okay, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying you got to step up. And well, how do you get so good at this? Well, I'm doing this. And I go, and when you sit there and you do the math, here's the thing that really has been a big problem that I've been facing coming up. People don't follow logic. I just don't get it. In any other field, if you talk about logistics, okay, you can go with the seniority mindset like a union. Okay, that you can wrap your head around, right? It applies to what we do until it doesn't. So, but, and I don't want to say much more because it might be your next question. So I don't want to ruin a potential question. But I mean, listen, I'll use that as an example because this is what I talked about in the article I wrote. I literally would train 10 to 20 times more Arnis than other people in my field. And what most people do in a year's training, okay, I would do in a couple weeks. I mean, some of these guys didn't pick up a stick since their last camp. I mean, so how could I not be better than them? Because we talk about logic and people don't want to listen to logic. Okay, Dexter James. Like the 10,000 hours of mastery or 100-hour rule. Okay.
Right. No, I mean, yeah. Especially if you're passionate about it, you're putting the work in for not just going through the motions. And I'll say that somebody could go in and go through the motions and teach, a bunch of times a day, and then a bunch of times a week, and then not get much out of it. But that's on them, and then you'd have to not be really enjoying what you're doing, which I don't think anybody would accuse you of. So again, using logic, there's some logic there that is missing. But anyway, I mean. That is a sort of a side point, I think, on what we're getting here, but it does matter, and I think maybe it would be interesting to just throw out the numbers someday, and we talked about that before, just for fun, because it is very illustrative how much it actually matters when you throw down the numbers in good faith. So anyway, just a thought there.
Well,
no, well, I mean. No, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I could let's do the easy one.
Mm-hmm.
I could do this easy. Okay. So 20 classes a week, 20 hours a week, times 50 weeks of the year. That's 1,000. That's 1,000 there without camps and seminars.
Right. And your own practice.
And my own practice and private lessons. That's just my classes, And I've been doing that for decades.
Yep.
And I was doing that while Remy was alive. So and this was all Arnis training. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. No, some of it was balloon walk training. Oh, that's right. One of the arts that created modern Arnis. Okay. So I've done a little cross training and personal development, some enrichment programs. But the thing here is, I would say of that 1,000 hours, at least 990 of them were Arnis. So actually, it doesn't matter. Those are my Arnis classes. Yeah. Those are classes. Those aren't the other things.
And the other things, those are in almost all of that's is in like me, I was wanted to look into all the things that contributed to Remy's synthesis, right? So if it's looking back along those lines and trying to look at Arnis, modern Arnis from that perspective, I think it still counts when you're trying to do the mental work as well as you deconstruct and reconstruct. But that's just my take. But I'm a scientist, right? So
here we go. By the way, alluding to what the curriculum was back in the day, we use the 6 videos as our curriculum. And that is exactly what I said when Dan Anderson was on FMA Discussion. And of course, he didn't, Dean mentioned it, but there was no comment about it. So Remy didn't have a written curriculum per se. He did have the camp test. But if you had those videos, you had the entire, I don't want to say the entire art because, it was always, you had enough of the art that you could do whatever you wanted with it.
Well,
Those were all
and
the
he
building
also
blocks.
he knew what he expected out of people, right? He had a set of standards
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
your generic person coming up that was not any sort of, there was other things going on, but we're talking about a generic person who's earning the ranks.
There you go.
He had a set of standards and expectations, wasn't always the same, but he dipped into that. That is a curriculum, you know.
Mhm.
So I made that point, and Dan even admitted that, hey, that's a good point. It's not just written curriculum. It's like, exactly. So anyway, I mean, but the point is, though, you have to think through your material in order to do right by your students. Bottom line.
Mhm.
Anyway, so what else was challenging as you progressed through the development of the WMAA, and what's challenging now? Besides the fact that we don't have we don't have that next generation in places like we'd want to.
So the biggest challenge, and I actually talked you mentioned, okay, this was where I was going. The biggest challenge that I ran into, and continue to run into, is that people don't use logic. So my biggest challenge was the Masters of Tappy Tappy.
For the WMA?
Initially, yeah. Initially, it's changed. The names have changed. But okay, here's why did I pull the trigger on the WMA? We didn't talk about that. So this ties right into that. So I had it in play. I had it ready as a backup plan. But obviously there's modernist people doing stuff. There's these masters of Tappy Tappy. So why didn't I work with them? Well, let's go to it. They didn't follow what Remy wanted done. So, first of all, here's the thing that's very frustrating. People are not following logic. So, first of all, the Mots had to be a 5th degree black belt before they were considered masters of Tappy Tappy. This is all okay. Let's back up. A lot of this could have been stopped if I would have accepted the promotion Remy did to me in Germany when he was in the hospital diagnosed that he was going to die. He offered to promote me, and my mindset was I was concerned about someone who was a father, a friend, and a mentor to me. And I wasn't worried about some damn belt promotion because, as always, I'll put up my shit on the floor against anybody. Okay? I'll go down that rabbit hole another time. Oh, I found lights. Okay, I got to turn this thing off. It's driving me crazy. So, oh, very good. Yeah, don't play with props as a fidget because you hit things and you didn't realize that it was a light. So Remy was diagnosed. I was the only American there in Germany when he was diagnosed. Once again, I was the only American there when he was diagnosed. Now, prior to that, Remy was in Tunisia and he was having problems walking and putting his clothes on properly. At the end of the seminar in Tunisia, while I was teaching in England, he was with Gabrielle Roloff and Jeff Delaney, and he promoted them both to 5th degree black belt and master of Tappy Tappy. So we all meet in Germany. Okay, Jeff flies home. Gabrielle flies back to Germany. I'm in Germany waiting for them. Long story short, I'm doing a meal with Gabrielle, and she tells me that, I told her, hey, listen, now that I'm a Datu, because at the time, everyone was painting this picture that Dieter was the Antichrist. And he wasn't as bad as everyone was making it out. He didn't help his situation, but he wasn't what they were making him out to be. Because Dieter and Gabrielle are both in the same country, and just to give us an idea of scale, Germany is the size of Michigan State, so it's not a big landmass area. So of course they're in each other's territory, a couple hours away from each other type thing. It's not a big deal, So I make the comment and Gabby goes, "Oh, it doesn't matter now. I'm a master tappy tappy." Really? And that supersedes everything. Really? Yeah, he promoted me to 5th degree black belt and master tappy tappy. So that supersedes everything. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't understand how a 5th degree black belt supersedes a 6th degree black belt. Because even with the new math, 6 is greater than 5. So same thing continues on. Remy offers me the system. Oh, actually, no. So Remy offers me the system after he gets diagnosed. I told him, don't worry about it. So who knows what belt level he was going to promote me to. And I said, listen, we're going to get you home. You're going to get better. Well, I trusted the doctor when he said he's going to die. But I wanted to get Remy in a good mindset so we can fly him home and then be at peace with his family the rest of his life, however long or short that was going to be. Because there was no number. This could have been days. It could have been years. A friend of ours, his wife is terminal and has got 5 to 10 years. And she's been doing fine for at least 5 of those years. So we don't know. I didn't know. This is not my thing. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
Hey, PG Sam.
So I get home. I call up Randy Shea and I said, who's the chairman of the board? I said, you got to get him out of there. He offered me the system. Get there before someone else goes over and gets rank. So a handful of the Americans went over and they got rank. Now, I don't know what the intent was, but the optics are what the optics are. Now, they didn't all go over because Chuck was in a hospital and Brian couldn't get off from work. But Brian was already 5th degree. But those who were not, and I talked to Randy Shea about it afterwards, like, what's this stuff on the website? He goes, well, those who weren't masters, those who weren't 5th degrees were promoted to 5th. Okay. And I said, okay. And then then they took 5th degree and took it from junior master, which I never heard. And if it was a junior master thing at 5th degree, I would have been one already because I was a 6th degree. And any rank that was any title that was rank driven, I would have had up until that point. I was the highest ranked American, Oh, let me rephrase it. I was the highest active ranked American. Because someone's going to cry foul.
Hey, Eric.
Yes, Eric is here. So, and then there's an article later that you've read that Gabrielle says that Remy made them all chant that what is higher than a grandmaster? Master Tappy Tappy. So they're trying to say that Master Tappy Tappy superseded everything, including his own rank, which I'm sorry, he would not have promoted anyone above himself because he was planning on coming out of this and getting back on the road. After talking, I visited him twice in a hospice, and the one was just a couple of weeks before he passed away. And that's when the nurses said to me, he's finally coming to terms. He's no longer in denial. He knows he's going to die. But up until that point, he thought he was getting out of there, which is a good mindset to have to keep him healthy and strong. If he sat there the whole time and said, I'm going to die, he probably would have died a lot sooner. So from that point on, I've had people try to say that their 5th degrees and masters of Tappy Tappy supersede everything. And they completely ignored the will, which was Remy's wishes, not this last minute tumor promotion thing that a title that didn't exist, never existed. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I personally believe that was probably a consolation prize for me getting my Datu ship or accepting it, because the year before is when Remy actually promoted me to 99. I didn't accept it until 2000. Kelly Warden actually congratulated me in 99 on it. And that's another topic. And when they put all this stuff out that they saw this Kevin Black, who was Remy's attorney, wrote my resignation because this is not what Remy wanted for you, Tim. That's what he told me. So I submitted my resignation after it was announced that Remy retired due to his medical condition. I left. But no matter what I was told, no matter what I would say, you had 7 people working in conjunction with each other.
Mhm.
Now, one of those people got arrested and then disappeared. Or at least that's what everyone keeps telling me. I'm not sure what the actual fate of Randy Shea is.
Mhm. But
he allegedly embezzled millions of dollars. May have been the one who embezzled Remy's estate. And every time somebody else, a member of that group, brought up the will, they were told, stop being a troublemaker. So no one wanted to follow the will that Remy put in there. And my problem is anytime I would say something, it would be my word against 7 other people. This is the challenge that I've had. Now we've got the same challenging now with a cancel culture thing where people are intentionally not mentioning my name. They'll bring up certain events and they'll talk about all the instructors except for one. Now everyone forgets something. I hosted the reunion camp at the 10-year Remy's passing. None of these other events would have probably happened had I not brought everyone together. And I know they're talking about this legacy camp, and I just want to talk about this legacy camp real quick on this because they did this last year with their version of their memorial camp, and now they're saying this is the legacy camp. And this does annoy me, and I'm just going to say my thing about it. They talk about how this is good for the community, how it's doing all this stuff. My event was for the community because I invited people that I didn't particularly care for. I brought the leaders. I invited the leaders of all the different modern East groups to come to Buffalo. Some chose not to participate, but they were all invited. Now, when it came to the Masters of Tappy Tappy, there was 2 groups. There was the IMAF, Jeff Delaney, and then the others. I picked 2 people from the others. That was Chuck Goss and Brian Zwolinski. I asked Jeff. Jeff said he had a schedule conflict. Okay. When we changed the date, I reached out to Jeff again. The IMF member, one of them, said, why did you bother reaching out to him again? I changed the dates. Well, you already asked. You don't need to ask him again. I go, yeah, I do, because if he truly didn't come to this because there's a schedule conflict, and then all of a sudden I changed the dates, would it be fair not to invite him a second time? Plus, I want to cover my ass. What they're doing is Brian Zwolinski handpicked the people he wanted at the first camp and handpicked the people at the second camp. If this was truly about the community, he would bring everyone together or try to bring everyone together. I haven't been invited to either of those events. That's not bringing the community together. And, they talked about how they did the Best of the West camp. One of the things that came from doing the reunion camp in Buffalo, can we do this? And they're saying, oh, yeah, we could do this. No, you can't. I'm going to tell you why you can't do this. Okay. Logistically speaking, the United States is a shitload bigger than Germany. And the difference between, you got to remember, when you look at Dieter's events, and I don't want to put anything down, but they were DAV events. And I would say 90% of the participants were all from his organization, if not more. When we did the Best of the West camp, I had my group from Poland show up, and Lyman showed up. Chuck had 1 student show up, maybe 2. I don't know if you consider Brian Johns was a student at the time. Brian Zwolinski didn't have anybody with him. It was just it was just a European camp. I don't think we could have the same happen here in the States because we don't have an organization with those numbers. Now, I do think what we could have done is looking about doing camps in multiple locations over a year. Oh my goodness. Look who says hello.
Oh, wow, Eric. How you doing, sir? Nice.
We're
Good to see
talking
you.
about how you thought I was a cocky guy. And then I thought he was a braggart. Oh shit, he can pull this stuff off. See, you never know when he's going to be. See, I have no problem saying anything because I know people are always watching, so I don't say anything secretive here. But
made my day. Made my day to see Eric. It's good.
And hello, Jason Arnold. There we go. But
awesome.
The thing here is, okay, so I said my little piece there. If this is supposed to be for the community, then you need to include. It needs to be inclusive, not exclusive. And I think that was why the IMF went the way it did. But the thing here is you had the 7 of them agreeing on everything. And anything I said, the 7 of them can say against. and they weren't following logic. But the thing here is, each
But
of
that-
those people had a group behind them.
And so that affected what you were trying to do with the WMA, even if you weren't trying to bother them. You were trying to do with the WMA was challenging because that's how we got into this, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, because the thing here is, unfortunately, these guys were. Anytime I'd say so, I would go out of my way to try. Okay, listen, I won't say it now. I mean, I will say it now. I go. I don't think any. Okay, first of all, I've said it. I've written it when I was angry. And I still get a little wound up about it, but I was very visceral back then. The comments I'd make was that they were all a one-trick pony and they all had the same damn trick. And that's why, let me ask you this, Brian, or not Brian, Ty. When was the last time you see Brian not do cross-arm lock set? When was the last time you saw a master tappy-tappy not do tappy-tappy? When did you see them do something other than their trademark move? I know what Brian's going to teach when he goes to all these seminars because it's the same damn thing over and over again. He taught at the reunion camp. I saw him teach over in Germany. I see footage of him teaching over in Germany when I'm not around. It's the same damn thing. And every time I'd say something, I would try to sit there and talk about, listen, okay, someone asked me, well, who's the top guy? I'm like, well, I was the most visible. What are you talking about? And someone would say, give me shit about that. Then I make comments, I was the highest tested black belt. And someone else would give me shit about that. But I mean, this was tangible stuff. And unfortunately, it was a chorus of people chiming in, trying to undermine what I was doing. Weren't you interrogated at one of these events?
Oh, there was some people want to know, why you're with X, Y, and Z, and I even told you before you didn't ask, but my whole point was I'm supporting everybody because I'm there for the students and Remy's legacy. So there is no with X, Y, and Z.
So
but it was very weird. It was beyond them, the people that were asking me that question. Why that I could think that way.
So you've made it on to you're now a board member with us. Let me ask you this. What is my criteria? What is my requirement for you to be on the board? Or what would exclude you from being on the board?
Just being on a similar, in a leadership role in another organization, but doesn't preclude me from still supporting all the other organizations, even the ones that you might not like.
And you've taught while being a member of our organization, you've taught at other organizational events, right?
Yep.
I've never discouraged that, have I?
Nope.
Okay. So we got 30 people watching at the moment, by the way.
Oh, good. Okay.
That's a high. Oh, now I went to 29. They turned away.
She scared that one.
They scared them away. Come on back now. Come here. No, but I mean, this is the thing. There's a lot of egocentrical stuff going on. And I can't say that I didn't get caught up in it myself, but I had to deal with this nonsense. And I had 7. I mean, really, in essence, I would say one thing, and then those 7 people could chime in on it or against it. And I would hear all these different things. See, now they were smart. They didn't do it online. But like I said, you went to an event, others went to events, and they were like, I remember someone going to one of the other guys' schools, and they said, if you show up to this event that I was teaching in, that you might not be allowed back here. Like, you're going to kick a student out that's paying you money because they went to somebody else's event? Come on. I mean, I would never do that. And then right. You heard that about an event down your way, didn't it? An event you taught at, right? When you did the camp down at last year's camp in Maryland, people who attended from another camp. You're killing me here. MTB. Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah. There's that. Yes. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, where somebody
Yep.
didn't like the fact that you went to somebody else's camp. So what do? You should kick out those students from your school. What are you, a moron? Listen, at the end of the day, as a martial arts school, we're no different than a gym. If a client wants to train with us and 3 other martial arts schools and they can afford it, who are we to tell them no?
Right.
It just might slow down their training if they're doing things that conflict each other.
Mhm.
I mean, I think this is where the MMA industry has it. If they know that so and so has a good guard game and another guy's got a good takedown and another gym has a good something, you might have a guy that belongs to 3 or 4 different gyms because they're learning different skill sets at these gyms.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, they're paying for a service, so they're getting it. And I it'd be silly to say, oh, you can't go there. Oh, because if you tell me that, guess who loses that equation?
Right. Well, that's one of the things I told people too when I was out supporting everybody. They would say, look, this is all going to be like this because that's my goal. As soon as somebody tells me, that I need to choose, they might be the one that I'd have to choose against because that's not part of the equation. It's really weird. People get confused. They think that so here's the deal that gets all this. All the politics that got in a lot of this stuff has become personal for the people involved. That's normal and that's human. I get it. However, when you're trying to do then, make your students or make your organization then act on your personal problems, now it's become a whole nother thing. And now you're controlling your students. Now you're controlling what people can do just because of how you feel. That's insane. Sorry.
Here's the closest I've gotten to that. And I had a ex-student now, not because of this other stuff. Life took him in a different direction. And this person would go attend seminars and not tell me.
Mm.
And I just found it. And with social media, it would have been nice to know they were going somewhere before they went somewhere. Not asking for my permission. Hey, because maybe I would have given them a package to take someone if they felt, hey, can you take this gift for me? Or go talk to so-and-so and tell them there. And some places they would say, mention my name, and other places don't mention my name. And
Right.
I want to mentor them.
Yep.
Not stifle them.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I'm sitting there and say, hey, so-and-so is at the camp this weekend. What? Yeah, they're there. I mean, and people don't think about how that could make you look.
Right.
You don't know what your students are doing? I'm like, well, I don't get that controlling, and it would have been nice. Like if I'm going to a tournament or a seminar or something like that, I would say, hey guys, I'm going here. Any recommendation?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, that's not the same. That you do want to sort of know. Plus you can help, help them with that or help them avoid any conflicts, that kind of good stuff. Or yeah. But yeah. I like that what Jeremy said, right? Your beefs are your beefs, not mine.
Yep. And Danny presses students.
Yep.
I press my students to train with others. That's cool.
Yep.
All
right. So it's been
that's been the problem. I mean, and here's the sad thing, what makes no sense is that none of it makes sense. There's no logic. Listen, I don't have to agree with the union mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But if we did the union mindset, they'd all be behind me. If we're talking about training as an adult, which one of them talks about, I was training as an adult while they were still a child training. Mm-hmm. The only person that was ahead of me in line, who was an adult is ahead of me in line, was Randy Shea, but then he disappeared. Mm-hmm. Disappeared. Okay. Some of these people were only black belts for 5 to 6 years, and they claim to be the leading world's expert of the art. See, and these are the kind of the frustration. You did it as the art within your art. You learned part of the art. Yep. There we go. So there was a lot of. I mean, I see a lot of. What's the word? What's the phrase I would say? A lot of insecure egomaniacs. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, we'd understand that we're stronger together. When we did the reunion camp in 2011, mm-hmm. I was so happy. The band's back together, not for going back to the organization, because I'm not going to go backwards. I was better off on my own. But we had an opportunity to get together every couple years and do something as a collective to make modern Arnis even more relevant. Put it in the spotlight. Lead the community of Filipino martial arts. We were the first to bring shit back together. Now we're back to falling apart, going in different direction. Actually, here's the thing. The people that are the naysayers in the States, there are only a couple handful of guys that only have a couple of guys. They're loud mouths with no organization behind them. And they're saying, well, I don't want to lead. Well, then why the frickin' hell do you got a grandmaster title? Because the one thing of being a GM is being a leader. And if you're not going to be the leader, there's no sense of having the title. I mean, if you can't produce a master, let alone a black belt, you shouldn't be a grandmaster. But that's another story. So, but that's been my challenge has been that, because as I try to work towards this stuff, I got people constantly saying different things. Well, I heard that you're not a Datu. Well, here's my diploma. Well, I was here. Well, it turns out your credentials aren't that good. Well, here's the diploma. Who else has one? And it's a constant vicious circle. I mean, how many times have we talked about Datu on the air? Has someone brought it up and taken shots on me? It's an old argument.
Yep. Like you picked it, which you didn't.
Yeah. Well, that's another one. So lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way. Thank you, Bill.
Yep.
And that's what I talked about. Well, I mean, I showed you the post the other day. We were talking about it. They chimed in about the announcement of last week's post about Remy, and someone's accusing me of promoting myself to being a Datu. Do your damn research.
Right.
If you're a real person. To me, it probably was one of my fan club underneath another a fake name, because we know there's a handful of those guys that have done the sock puppety thing and have like 3 or 4 different accounts per person, and they just wouldn't be man enough to, I know it's not PC, but I'm gonna say they wouldn't man up and say, hey, I think you're an asshole. They just do it with a sock puppet. Okay, but that's probably been the biggest challenge.
Well, it sounds like COVID. And COVID, right? Well, that's current leftover challenges. Yes.
I mean, personally, I think we're rocking. I mean, I think we're doing a really good job. We're expanding. I'm going back to Brazil most likely this year or next year, or like April-ish. I'm
you
going
got Brazil, you got Venezuela, you got Barbados.
I'm not. No. We've done Venezuela. I'm not.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So people who've expressed interest for next year, Brazil, which they're advertising the event right now. Just there's a certain amount of tickets they're selling for the event. So once they hit that number, they're shutting it down. They have to make sure they had the numbers to cover that. Which I have to talk to them about anyways. We're looking at possibly going to the Netherlands, teaching there. Jersey Island expressed interest, which is south of England. Morocco.
Nice.
And there's other places going back to. These are this is like new stuff we're talking about doing. Well, Brazil, I can be going down quite regularly if things work out right.
Cool.
Ken Jowers. Okay.
Nice.
Well, we're not all that lucky, unfortunately.
Right.
Remy used to tell me, Tim, the better I do, the louder the dogs will bark. Here we go. Okay. Can you read that? I have to do my thing.
Oh, so Joe says, I was found out about the Connecticut camp, but I couldn't go to the last minute, and a friend offered me a ride to the event. It was never a case of who can I hurt, but who can I meet who I haven't met, and what can we learn at the event? Yeah, absolutely. Yep, definitely. No, yeah, the negativity is no fun. But I mean, so I think, and this is where I think we should probably turn around here. Focusing on, my whole goal has always been focus on the students, the people who really want to do Modern Arnis, and I consider myself a student of Modern Arnis. Focus on that. Focus on Remy's legacy for that. It's not a Remy worshiping cult, but it's hey, he gave us all a gift. This gift is great. Let's appreciate it. Oh, you like this gift? And let's geek out together. That's my approach. So I think, no matter what other people's negativity is, I try to always touch back to that and focus on what am I doing that why am I here? I'm enjoying this stuff. What do I want to do to keep enjoying this and how to get other people to enjoy their parts? That's where I'm looking at. So along those lines, this is where we get to the future of WMA. What kind of things are in store and stuff like that. But I'll let you get to some quotes first, or did we already cover them all?
Well, let me see here. You got that one right.
Yep.
And then Joe also said and money's always a thing,
Yep.
Oh, wait, are you going to Brian's camp? Is that what he's saying? Or are you going to go to the?
I don't know. Brian was.
Oh, that's Connecticut, so that's got to be Brian's. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I don't know if he went to the last one. I don't know if he's going to this one. I guess maybe that's what he's saying. Yeah.
Then Bill Anderson, any talk about your teaching skills, be it bad or good, is still good advertising. I found out, and Tim's event was incredible. Thank you. Even though I earned my BB from another instructor, Datu was welcome into my family. Okay. Has welcomed me into the family. Yep. So the future, well, getting through this medical challenge.
I bet, yes. But I mean for the WMA, but yes.
Well, no, because it ties in. I have not done any filming. I might do some filming one-handed. So when Joe had, you were there and a bunch of people saw the footage where I did the seated demonstration up at Terry Dow's.
Right.
And someone actually thought I was making fun of them when Brent was there. And Joe said he's going to go. It was there last year, not this year. It was a successful see Great Martial Arts family. Yep. And I made a point of functioning. So I was in Brazil. I've got some good footage of me working out then. That was still post car accident. But every time you see good footage, there was probably an hour of me screaming and hollering internally afterwards. Here's the thing. I got my work ethic from Remy. Remy would do all of his sessions, be taken to the hospital for high blood pressure, and still make the next morning session. I know others said he missed sessions. I never was part of that. I saw Remy do every freaking session out there. Now, he may hand the session off to me. The one time he goes, it was after lunch break, he goes, "Oh, you do disarms tonight." And I looked up, I'm like, that's a lot of black belts to teach. So, but it wasn't a surprise. It was, "Tim, you're teaching," which surprised me, but he did not show up, and then we had to do something.
Right.
So my mindset is, I don't care if I have to be wheeled on and off. I'm going to do what people, there's people in the audience that came to see me. I'm not going to let them down. I may pay for it. I may pay the price, but at the time being, I'm not going to be putting out any new content for our videos until my body's back to where it should be, because or at least better than I am right now, because I've been having up until last week. I couldn't do this for my staff form, and that's been cortisone with some other stuff and a lot of stretching. But it took me 2 months to get after my MRI to actually see my doctor to give me an analysis and get me on the right path. So, and not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after. Wait. Oh no, it is next Wednesday. Next Wednesday is my follow-up for my knee to find out if I'm going to need surgery, which we're thinking I'm going to need surgery on that. That shows the level of appreciation among the martial art community. Okay. Once I get through this, I'm planning on putting new content out. This summer, we will be debuting our CLOP program. Oh, and by the way, I'm not teaching it. I got Mike and May Williams coming in. Been going through the same thing medically. Yep. Get shots in my back every 2 weeks to stay active. Tim was in New Hampshire and watched him do his version of the famous drink.
Oops.
The Suffering Bastard. Okay, I'm not sure about what that's all about, but
I think he knew you were in pain when you're doing those.
Okay, but I mean, that's how Remy was.
Yep.
when I came up, when we had my crew, my initial crew that I was helping me, getting them their black belt and getting me to my next level, we had a mindset like we're doing demos. It goes, you can't act, you won't have to.
Right.
We just beat. I go, we heal. Well, where are we at now? We're all in our 20s. Yeah, we heal quick enough.
Well, there's another secret too. Is I don't know about you, when you're trying to teach someone and you're in this pain. Remember how bad my hip was going. Usually, what would happen is that I would do the things because that's how I knew to do them, and it wouldn't feel them at the time. But then, when you're done showing the thing, or when it's later on, you pay the price. But that's the same thing, right? I haven't been putting out my own videos for this last year now that my right hip's been acting up, and other stresses.
Here we go. Wait for it.
So I'll get there.
Boom.
Ooh, there you go. Eric, you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Eric, sir, the truths that you two speak hurts people's feelings, but it's still the truth. I love it. Good leaders will always be talked about because quality shines. Thank you, sir.
You're the man. I love it, man.
Yeah,
I miss you so much, Eric. I can't tell you how much Ty and I talk about you in a positive way.
Right. If we were going to be negative, we would tell it to your face. And so
I would say you're an asshole, but
exactly.
We don't know.
No. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay. The worst I would say is like, what do you think of my mustache? I'm like, Eric, what do you think of your mustache? That's when we all had bad hair back in the day. I had the bush. Let's see. I'm here playing the doting mother. Tim, are you all right? Tim, you look in a lot of pain.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, he saw you. Yep, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Bill's got a bail.
Got a bail. All right, Bill. See you soon.
Yep.
And then Tim, I'm just saying the pain where you felt bad for you. Okay, I get you, brother.
But that's the thing. I mean, so you're doing this thing that you love, and you love the students, you love everybody's thing. So you may not feel it until you do that one bad move, or until you pay for it the next later. I mean, that's and you're right. Remy did that a lot. But he would sit down and do tappy a lot of times, right? That's where a lot of people thought that we were doing sitting tappy on purpose. It's like, no, his foot's acting up. You don't need to do that.
I gotta. Okay, I just had to send that to California. That was the big argument. I would have loved to sat down and interact with some people. Well, Remy used to Anderson. It was like, oh look, when he was on the show back in the day, Remy used to move all around doing striking styles, and then with the tappy, he stopped moving. I go, well, one, he had gout. You may not have realized that.
Yep.
Two, the tappy was Balintwalk light, and that was more boxing movement in the pocket, not run in. And so it's not that we didn't do that movement. That movement was for a different thing.
Yep.
And that's this is the thing that annoys. This is the biggest. Okay. People are ruining modern Arnis for us in the States right now. And it's not me. I am opening my mouth about things. I'm holding people accountable. But at the end of the day, they're being little wusses, being ostriches, sticking their head in the ground, being cowardly. I will block you, Tim, but I'll talk about you and not give you the opportunity to respond. How about an interaction like a grown-ass adult? How about we sit down and talk about these things? Because right now, when every time we have a difference of opinion or difference of experience, it could be a learning opportunity on both sides. Mm-hmm. Well, Remy didn't do this around me. Well, let's think about why he might not have done that around you. Were you in a region that was newly developed? Was he doing a topic of material that was completely different than another topic of material? Like when he started doing the left on right tappy, more akin to Balintwalk. You wouldn't run around with all the same footwork you would do during the striking styles. Was Remy's gout flaring up?
Mm-hmm.
Ron Browning taught me about how he brought Remy a brand new pair of shoes, and then he saw him a month later, and he cut a hole where the big toe was because it was swelling up and bothering him. Mm. Remy, you cut a hole in your shoe. Oh, it's more better now. because Remy was doing a fix.
Yep.
He was doing a hack versus a fix.
Right.
But I mean, there's so many things. Was Remy's blood pressure up? Was it down? Was he eating well? Was he sleeping well? Was there something else in his brain driving him crazy? And I'm not talking about the tumor. I'm talking about, was there something annoying him? I would hear about these things. Oh, Tim was a troublemaker. Tim was a troublemaker. No, Tim talked to you about something and you didn't want to confront. There was here's the kind of stuff I'd put up that was a challenge that people would think about. So Remy does a seminar for someone, and this female instructor talked about not that Remy shouldn't have done it because the person was was accused of being a pedophile. Okay. I went to the event because my grandparents had passed away. My grandfather had just passed away, and Remy was the closest thing to family, and Remy actually knew my grandparents. And at the end of the day, I wasn't supporting the host. I was supporting Remy. Because if we didn't show up as students, Remy wouldn't get paid, or he might not get paid.
Right.
So I was never about supporting the seminar host. Because if I sit there and say, well, Ty's going to have Remy in, I won't go there because I don't like Ty. Is that the only reason why? Yeah, I don't like Ty. But what if Remy doesn't get paid? I didn't think about that. So now if afterwards, I made someone asked me when I was there, what are you doing here, Tim? Well, I had to see Remy. And, at the end of the day, I looked around and people were talking in the locker room about the whole thing. I go, dude, he hasn't been arrested. So I don't want to get into that, because we're innocent until proven guilty.
Yep.
All right. So later at summer camp that year, the person comes to me. I don't know what to believe anymore. What are you talking about? Well, I was just talking to Chuck, and he said that you made this comment about that there. I go, Jay, there was people there, men, women, and children. There wasn't a place to speak about it. Well, I guess so. I go, no, listen, listen, I got your back on this. Let's go talk to Remy right now. Let's go right now. I went with Remy. I went with her with Remy. We talked about it. She walked away and I was like, hey, you're a troublemaker. I go, Remy, she was about to leave. Had you and I not had this conversation with her, you may have lost her and all of her people. Okay. But I was the troublemaker, and people heard him call me a troublemaker for the thing. And it's easy to pile on when you're trying to work your way up, because most people didn't want to do the work, and it was easier to tear people down than build yourself up. Okay, what's this here? I tell the story of Remy doing the first 3 forms of the side. The reason brought a pair to the seminar. Normally he would have never. Okay.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I had these type of things, and people will go, well, Tim did something. Yeah, you showed up to my school and took money from me teaching a seminar. So when we did the reunion camp, so how bad could that have been if you compromised your integrity for a couple bucks? But what do I know? But then once the seminar is over, we want nothing to do with Tim. I see how it is. So that's been my biggest challenge. Yeah, I might be going down that rabbit hole too much, but it still annoys me. I mean, I didn't go, like I said, we do our thing. The thing I'm looking forward to is getting more footage out. The thing I'm looking forward to is getting more locations, because we're building and growing. Brazil is beginning to get larger and larger. Nice. And I'm hoping this trip in the Netherlands comes through like they're talking. There's a few other things here and there. So I see a lot of good things for us. I'm hoping we'll have the gene pool set in. My goal is this. Remy died when he was 64, turning just shy of 65. He died 3 months prior to his birthday. So my goal is when I turn 65, that we need to have the numbers doing the art and it'd be not in the WMAA collectively, although it's probably going to be the WMAA. We need to have the same numbers that Remy had at that time. That's my short-term goal. I just turned 58. I've got 7 years to get our numbers up. That is my goal. And I am, and you know, as much as I do as a standalone program, I still embrace the art within your art because it's a great delivery system. I'm not against it.
Mm-hmm.
I just discern that the people understand that, you know, when I do it, I don't teach it. Let me see how to phrase this. I try to have them do it as accurately as possible, even though I might be piecemealing in material into what they're doing. And I realize that they're going to have their initial DNA blended in there.
Mm-hmm.
I try to infuse as much of the modern DNA in there to get them moving closer to a Filipino martial artist. At the end of the day, I don't give a shit if it works. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because the first thing that Remy taught was how to do defensive tactics, blending Filipino concepts into your primary art.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm teaching people good self-defense and they don't move like a Filipino martial artist, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Datu did something. He's teaching me Panantukan. Oh, thank you. And the next seminar for that is happening during our instructors camp, which I got to put the links up for everybody. It's up there. I just haven't put that out there. Joe is the representative of Kempo International for U.S. Congratulations, Joe.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wait a minute. That was a long time ago. That was a memory. That's a memory.
Still, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, so I try to keep this, make sure if there's anything I need to know about while we're talking about this stuff. So, you know, hopefully I didn't get too ranty on that. That was my rant. It's also been my biggest challenge. And I think now the challenge is going away because so are the people. There's not many of us less here.
Well, when any of these things happen in the organizations, there's always a place where a time where that, all of that stuff doesn't matter anymore, partly because it is just personal and it finally gets out. People realize that. And so then the organizations, whatever they are, whatever piece of the puzzle they have, they just go on and do whatever it is that they're going to do in the first place. So there's no more need for any of the angst and whatnot. And I think we're starting to get there, I hope.
Okay, so here we go. As Jim Kelly said, I'll be too busy. Oh, Tim, as Jim, I'll be too busy looking good. Simply stated, just keep looking good. Be a light rather than curse of darkness, and guide the future better. And then we got from the Kuntao, Salamat, Maganda Umaga.
Very good.
Greetings from Happy birthday. Oh, Carlito Senior. Oh, great. How did that come up?
It's one of those Facebook memories. They just bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, it comes up every now and then. Yeah. But yeah, I think oh my goodness. Okay. So my goal, I mean, I'm looking at things right now and a lot of problems are going away. And some other people I think just need to well, like Bill said, what did Bill say? Bill says something really I like Bill. We didn't always agree with each other, but
which one? The lead, follow, get out of the way, or
yeah. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. That's perfect. I mean, and that's it. I mean, and unfortunately, the main org is kind of no longer. And the good thing about that, not that it's a good thing, I had nothing to do with that, and no one can blame me.
There you go.
They can say whatever they want, but I had nothing to do with what they did, or what they didn't do. That had nothing to do with me. But as the largest U.S. based actually as the world's largest non-government sponsored modernist organization, it's a mouthful. I wish I had the backing from the government like the Philippines did, or the comp sport. Although I couldn't do the comp sport like the Europeans do, because I wouldn't be able to do this as a living. I'd have to have a real job. But like I said, I retired a while ago. So, you never retire from martial arts. Well, I mean, some people have it. You quit. I don't think you ever retire. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, I think, at the end of the day, I'm looking forward to us going forward. I just said the same thing twice, but I'm looking forward to the future, because I think there's a lot of cool things. And who knows? Like I said, I got a CLOP program starting up this summer. I'm really excited about that. Panantukan 2, we released that. We're working on the progress of that. If everything goes right, 2025, we'll have our first black belt test in our Panantukan program. I'm getting more and more people signing up on on our virtual training from the International Modernist University, and the live lessons. People are being to come in from Europe more, so I'm excited about that. A lot of good things happening.
Yep.
I'll be the first to admit, sometimes I just get a little at the end of the day, I should just not let it sweat me, but I do. I look at these other guys, I go, listen, let's see. This show does so much positive for modernists, and that's what it's all about. Does it? I mean, I thought the show is just about me venting.
Well, so actually you touched upon something about that earlier, maybe not in this conversation. Part of what we're doing here with this informal thing is a little bit entertainment, right? So there's a little bit of indulgence to be interesting. Otherwise, we'd all be lecturing and falling asleep.
Listen, I want to tell everybody at the end of okay, here we go. That is the phrase of the night. I'm looking forward to moving forward.
There you go.
Yep. At the end of the day, I understand. Well, this is a show. I hope everyone understands that on the show, I'm exaggerating things and making it a little bigger, because this is entertainment just as much as anything. But at the core, it's what I'm trying to do. That's why I also do the
closet, and you're a closet shock jock, right?
Yeah, they're a closet shock jock. But I also have my blog posts, which put things a little more articulate. And this show, and I've said before, and I want to thank everybody for watching the show, it gives me an opportunity to say things, and with comments from the readers, like over here, and from Joe and all this other stuff. I'm gonna just put all of Joe's up, and then Steve right there. Oh, there we go. And then here's another one. I'm looking forward to hopefully being part of the growth of the world. Great, and Joe Rebella, don't sweat the petty things. There you go. Just don't pet the sweaty things.
Nice.
But at the end of the day, this show allows me to get a lot of stuff out, say some things, and then it gives me time to, and sometimes I get some good comments over here that makes me think, and then I put it all together and I write a blog post, and those blog posts have been really good.
Yeah, and that's for more for the record consumption.
Yeah, and some of the stuff I don't put on the organizational page. Some of it's more me, like definitely a little more ranty Tim, so I keep it off that. But a lot of the stuff, it's like, hey, it works out perfect, and once again, I don't care if people disagree with me. It doesn't hurt my feelings.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, that's it. I don't take it personal.
Well, my feelings are hurt because nobody said anything about my new glasses. I don't think anybody noticed, or they just don't like them.
Well, I noticed something was going on with your face.
All right. I get that a lot. I get that a lot.
There we go. And
Yeah,
hi,
Tim and
Tim
Ty.
and Rich. Tim and Ty Rich. Okay.
Is he back or is he just?
I don't
is he
know.
broken?
I don't know. Who knows? Rich doesn't. He makes me confused. So at the end of the day, I'm happy where I am.
Mhm.
I'll say this again. Nice glasses, PG, by the way.
There you go.
That's
Nice.
now
Thanks,
that
Eric.
you've got that out there.
That's right.
Too much
Now
glare
I can go
from
to
your
bed.
head.
That's true. That's right. There we go.
Oh, Coach Danny out of
Nice.
nowhere. Because coaches, Danny hasn't really come with those shots. That would be a Renee shot. Thank goodness.
That's true.
Listen, here's the way I feel. I've had no intention to hurt people. Okay. And if I did, I'm sorry. And if people would have reached out to me and talk about it, then we could clear the air and possibly fix things. And would I go back and change anything? The answer would be no. And here's the reason why. I thought it was the new haircut. That's pretty good.
I did shave this morning, so
His head, not his face, but
no, obviously not.
yeah. So the thing here is I'm very comfortable with who I've become. And if I change what I did in the past, I may not have been the person who I am today. And I feel very confident for who I am. I know I've done a lot of good things. And for my martial arts, for personally, I don't give a damn about my doing anything more for my legacy, because my legacy is complete. I cannot tell you how many times I bump into parents from back in the day, and they tell me on how much I changed their kid's life.
Mm-hmm.
So then I remind them their kids did the work. I just gave them the direction.
Yep.
It was a teamwork.
Yep.
And I had a parent last night do the same thing. Tell Datu, you've given my kids so much confidence. I didn't do that. I gave him directions. I gave him an opportunity to do stuff, and his actions of following my directions got him there. It was a teamwork. I don't have good students because I'm a good teacher. I got good students because I got good teamwork between the student and the teacher. I can't do the work for them. We talk about that all the time. You got to do your work. I got to do my work, and they got to do theirs. So my personal legacy, I don't need to do anymore. But why do I get all upset about the art and all this other stuff? Because I really took it seriously when Remy said, teach people and take it on to the next generation. And it is obvious to me that others didn't, because they're all going around with crazy ranks out there and doing nothing. Okay. We had an art that's supposed to only have one grandmaster, and we have like 16 people with the equivalent of a GM title in the art. I don't have a GM title in the art. I got a GM title from Combatant, from Ernesto. But there should have only been one of us, and we all should be behind that person. But then recently I was told that they weren't promotions, they were recognitions. So it's more like an honorary thing. So it's okay. It's all right. It's all right. Still go back to the beginning. So I don't need to do this because I know I've positive effect lives. But I want to do this for Remy.
You're still passionate about the art. That's the deal. That's what people, if you're going to be passionate about something, it's going to show.
And I don't think people get it, or they don't want to get it. And, I don't want to sit there and say I'm the only one that remembers Remy's birthday and puts it up there, or the day he passed away and puts it up there. But for all these people that talk all this big, bad stuff about Remy, I don't see a lot of people putting memories up about Remy when the important dates are around. And I don't remember Remy just on the important days. I remember Remy every day.
Comes up a lot.
Comes up a lot.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I'm done. Unless you got any questions that we didn't cover.
Let's see. I talked about my classes. Oh, well, actually, it continues on the last one, right? So we talked about what's in the future and what's important to the organization, that kind of good stuff going forward. That leads straight into our normal thing, which is at the end we say of all the cool things that are coming up shortly. So we've got a few things coming up in the next 4 or 5 weeks, right?
Okay. So this weekend I'm at the Gathering
Mhm.
in Sacramento, and the night before the Gathering, Friday night, I'll be at Rancho Cordova Martial Arts teaching a seminar there as well. It's probably gonna be a small thing, it's a Yao Yan and Dulce Parra's gym. So I'm going to be teaching there. I'm meeting with Grandmaster, I'm supposed to be meeting with Grandmaster Animo, which is one of the people I was chatting with while we were doing this, because he just messaged me and I can't miss that. The following weekend, I am teaching at the Saratoga Martial Arts Festival. I'm only going to be there one day. And fortunately, this time I actually have there's no schedule conflict, and a bunch of my students are going with me.
Yep.
And then the last weekend of the month, which is 19 days away, 18 days away, we have our instructors training camp at the World Modern Arnis Alliance headquarters. The weekend after, you and I will be up in, actually, so that goes from the 30th of September to October 1st.
Yep.
And then you're teaching at the Virginia Police Academy
Mhm.
for a handful of days, and then meeting me up in Salem. And the two of us will be two of the instructors teaching at the martial arts event up there that Mike and May Williams will be hosting.
Yep. Is that technically a continuation of the FMA invasion, or it's a branch off of, however, it's something, right?
Yeah. Because Tim Gillette's going to be there, and a few other
Right.
people are going to be there.
Right.
Sifu Alex, and then I go teach. I get home for a couple days, and I hop on a plane to go to Barbados. So I'll be teaching at the Caribbean Martial Arts Festival. I'm home for 2 days, and I go down to Orlando to the
Nice.
Maya Game Changers. I come back from that. I host my Halloween Spooktacular.
Mm.
And then the weekend after that, the first weekend of November, I'm going to just rip through these all.
Mm.
You and I, my friend, will be visiting Bobby Tabuada.
Yep.
In Charlotte, North Carolina for his 75th birthday.
Yep.
I'll be having my Labanlaro tournament on November 11th. When is
And
your event?
November 11th, I'll be doing the fall FMA fling.
All FMA thing. Then November 18th, we're doing the Delaware Winter Camp. We're putting that back in play. And then then Thanksgiving weekend, I'm up in Canada teaching our Canadian mini camp up there for our Southern Ontario camp. And then the first weekend of December, we have the WMAA Christmas party, which we do training in there. That'll probably be another Pontoon event. And then the weekend after that is the 9th of December. I'm teaching with Terrell Richardson, and we're doing a smoking sticks and modern East seminar in Washington, D.C. And that wraps up all the seminars I'm doing for the rest of the year.
I just have one to add. There is the 23rd of this month, before I get off on the instructors camp and the sheepdog combatives and the FMA invasion continued. The 23rd, I'm teaching at the 15th annual Warriors seminar, which is basically a Sanuka's event, but I was invited.
Cool.
This is the first year I'm doing that. I've known the guys, most of the guys on there for a while. So this is nice to branch out and do that. It'll be fun. That's in Thurmont, Maryland.
Nice.
So yeah, that's just that's only a few months to the end of the year, and that took a half hour to say all that, right? That's pretty good.
There you go.
A lot of opportunities. That's one of the things I like.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the goals, is not the opportunities for teaching. It's the opportunities to get out there and share and interact with the people that love this stuff anyway.
Yeah, and like I said, there's so much stuff that's and that's just us.
Mm-hmm.
There's more members of our group that are doing things.
Yep.
And there's other systems out there doing things. And for those who are watching, if you want stuff to be larger and bigger and better, get it out there. Make sure we know about it. And we are looking for more. Are we doing a show next week?
I can't remember.
We could. I might not. I don't know. We may or may not do a show next week because it's, well, actually, we could. What's a good topic?
Gosh. There was a couple that came up during this one that I thought about, and then I didn't write them down. So,
Well, what I was thinking about doing, I had a backup plan. Modern Arnis fighting clan.
mm.
I know a few people from that fighting clan.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about why it's so important, why fighting is important to modern Arnis. What do you think?
And what is fighting?
Well, there you go. Yeah. So we're going to talk about a couple things. We'll see if we can get a guest on the show.
Okay.
Well, I'll message him. Hey, can you do next week's show? You know who I'm talking about too.
With enough notice, right?
Yeah.
And no emergencies. Joe says, remind about the Kempo Arnis camp.
Oh, that's in September.
Okay.
Well, let me just put it up there because Joe's gonna. I'm not gonna say he's gonna drive me crazy because that was a short drive I went on a long time ago. Let me 17 days. Oh, I don't have it here. Why don't I have it here? Oh, you know why? Because it's on Facebook. The North American Kempo Summit.
Okay.
And Tim Hartman. I got to put one more name on there. Scott Gonzalez agreed to do this. I haven't made anything. So it's a 2-day event. We got Jason Arnold. Okay, here are the countries they're from. Jason Arnold, Damian Abbott, Ernst. You good? That's from, yeah. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Flixlager.
Okay, let's go with that. Robert Guida, myself as the special guest because I'm special. I'm special. Donnie Jeffcoat, Carl Outram, and Jamie Seabrook, and then we have Scott Gonzalez coming up from Arizona. So we were supposed to do this back in 2020.
I was going to say that sounded, yeah. Southern Ontario camp. Sudbury, right?
Sudbury, yeah.
Yep.
Let me.
I don't know who that Facebook user is.
Yeah, I don't know who Facebook user is, but right here. November 25th and 6th. It's our Thanksgiving weekend, Black Friday. So, yeah. So that's going to be then. We might be doing some gradings while we're there too. That's something we're going to be pushing a lot more too.
I guess it says Cambridge. Yeah. Okay.
I am bumming for missing the gathering. Which gathering? Was that
Is that the Kempo Arnis one, or
are you talking about
Bruce?
Yeah.
Or is he talking about Bruce Jusnik, or is he talking about the Gathering of Eagles?
Oh, that's gone. Yeah, because Tracy. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yep.
All right. So that's about it. Unless you got another last minute question for me.
Nope.
Okay. So in next week's show will be about fighting for modern Arnis. I'll write something up tomorrow. And I just messaged a newly minted dog brother.
Minted is very appropriate.
Yes, it is. Newly minted dog brother who is a modern Arnis black belt. Go figure. I don't know if there are any of those other than this one.
Well, and that modern Arnis is his primary art for
Yep.
that stuff.
He does not do WMAA.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Bruce Shutnick.
Okay. Just check. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, Joe, if you would have been able to fly out, you could have roomed with me, but you had to put up with my snoring.
Earplugs work great, and plus you put the mouth tape on him.
Stop it! Don't talk about my mouth and tape. Good night, Modern Arnis family.
All right, Eric.
Okay, so as always, everybody, it is a pleasure. Almost 3 hours, and we still got 20 people putting up with our nonsense.
They fell asleep a long time ago.
Yeah, they're shut automatic.
That's right.
So, but 30 people were watching. I guess this is what happens when Dean Franco takes a little break. Ty is still telling where.
I told you it's actually from my old group in Texas, and so this version of the logo, I believe, is actually from Dr. Hume's. He's taken it and run with it, so I got one of those shirts. But this is one of the logos we used to use for my old off-campus club, and he came up with this version. Yeah,
cool.
Oh, and actually, that's a picture though. It's a negative from that I had to give credit because it's a negative from I think Dieter working with one of his guys. So that if you'll notice the on my website, you can see the link giving credit for that because credit matters.
It matters. Yep. Yeah. We'll do that later. And yeah, there's gonna be we got some other cool shows coming up, but I think this one's gonna be the good one. It'll be a good one for sparring. It'll be nice. I think we'll have a good time with that one.
Tim Dobson, that's who the Facebook user was.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. Well, listen, as always, everybody, please stay safe and stay sane.
Take care, everyone. Yep.
This is Datu Tim.
PG Ty.
See you all soon.